Hey everybody, welcome to Hash Church, episode 97, and I'm going to go through the simple little things that I go through each day before we get going here. Just going to mute the YouTube stream as it starts live. Always likes to start a few minutes after. There we go, so I can mute that so we don't have to listen to that. And then I will send out the links and we will get to our dialogue for the day. I hope everyone's doing wonderful on this lovely Sunday morning. I know it's not Sunday morning for everyone, but for those of you that it is, I hope you're having a good one. Let's pump out that hangout to the crew. There's one, there's two, and there is 3 and 4. There we go. All right, invited everyone that I can remember. I guess, yeah. I am at the end yesterday. Oh, there he is, Mr. Etienne.
Hello, sir. Oops, hold on. Let me get my microphone.
Do it. Mark Scialdone in the house, although Mark Scialdone sometimes comes in and then leaves right away and then comes back in. So we'll see if he's actually in the house or, wow, 350 people are also in the house here at 9:01. That might be a record. People are jonesing for Hash Church after last week's INDRA drop. That's what I'm talking about. Hemp guy! How's it going, Sam? You gotta block your YouTube. Hemp guy!
Howdy, howdy.
Yeah, I'll mute you till you've done it. Welcome, Johnny B.
How are you doing on episode 97, everybody?
I'm feeling pretty good about it, you know, I'm feeling pretty good about it.
Well, I got up this morning and just dry sit just to do the morning rip with you guys.
I'm feeling pretty good about it. Who has the YouTube playing in the background? If you have it playing, turn it off, please. Then we don't have to hear my voice in the background. Maybe we'll get right to blowing smoke signals to the Vatican.
I'm a fan. Hey, welcome back there. How's it going there, Skunkman? Skunkman?
Yeah, excuse me, yes?
Welcome back, sir. We missed you last week.
No problem. My 2 daughters made me attend a birthday party for myself.
Good on them. That's the way to do it. I like that. My 2 daughters made me attend a birthday party for myself.
Well, happy belated birthday there, sir.
Hey, we just passed 420 viewers. We better take a dab. Got some lovely Rockstar that Flav421 gifted me yesterday or 2 days ago. A little bit of flower rosin from Mr. Flav.
That's awesome.
Thank you, Heavenly Days, actually, not just Flav. I remember him saying it was a Heavenly Days gift. So Heavenly Days is a pretty well-known company here in BC that does different extracts. I've seen Sift and Bubble Hash and Rosin, and then, of course, they do live resin and some other things as well. So thank you, Heavenly Days. I'm going to rip that up right now. Everyone ready? Everyone ready? You got your stick there, Johnny B?
I've done 2 already. Where's your 1?
Well, 2 on Hash Church, because, man, I've done like 14 just waiting for Hash Church, but this is my first Hash Church rip of the day, so.
I did a 710 bong rip at English Bay. Set up today. Had to drop off some stuff. They're going to have a great parade there today, and it's kind of cool to be downtown for breakfast.
Is that the Pride Parade?
Yes, it is. They postponed it until noon today. It was supposed to open at 8 a.m. there or 9 a.m. this morning. So I think they're running a little late, but I was still driving around the streets at about 8 o'clock this morning as they were shutting stuff down and racing back here for Hash Church. And then they'll be down at noon till about 4, I think, how it's going to be, but the weather isn't looking completely fantastic, but let's hope it works out good.
Yeah, that was a nice picture of you at 7:10 a.m. there, John.
It's a great morning. You know, it's like, hey, I got up and did my sifting at about 4:20 this morning, actually. So I did my 4:20 Instagram. I mean, what is that? Snapchat. And 7:10 Facebook Toast.
Hey, did you just give me the finger?
No. Thumbs up.
I'm joking.
That was definitely last week's mystery. Everybody's like, who showed him the finger? I hope it wasn't me. I gave him a thumbs up. I know it was a thumbs up.
It was at 2:39. At 2:39 and 20 seconds, Johnny B goes like this. He puts the thumbs up with both of his fingers extended. It's for a second, but man, if INDRA isn't on the ball. He saw that shit so fast. I know you didn't give him the bird, Johnny. You were just doing your sort of finger thing. For whatever reason, your two middle fingers came out, and man,
It was John that did it.
well, it was John that accidentally did it. Yeah,
John, I'm so glad it wasn't me. I honestly was feeling guilty. That's why I said something.
It's like this. I had a lighter in my hand.
but you did it with both hands.
Maybe I had
I took a picture of it actually.
No.
Oh, man.
Yeah, I was like, because I wanted to find out who did it as well.
Finger and everybody.
Wow.
Wow.
Well, glad it's not me.
Same here. It's not like we shoot the finger at the.
Yes,
No, you know what? It wasn't. At least we can tell him it wasn't the finger. It was just Johnny giving him the thumbs up.
Right.
So that's the most important thing.
Hey, I hope we have him back. That was one of the better episodes, man. That was fucking impressive. Whoever helped get him on, thanks, because I know a lot of people really benefited from
There's
that.
this guy named Mark. He makes hash occasionally, takes photographs.
Good job, Mark.
Hey, let's thank him really because I've been inviting him for quite a while, and I always had the strangest communications with him. It was never really like. I remember I texted him on my phone one time, and he's like, "Hey, your phone." He knew that the email was being read somewhere other than just him. He's got this email program that lets him know where emails are coming from and if they've been opened by any other parties before they get to him. And he actually told me my emails were getting opened before I sent them. I was kind of like, "Holy shit, I did a little bit of email fixing since then, but he only talks to me through certain very like private chats and stuff, like PGP and stuff.
Secured channels.
Army background by the sounds of it. It was really cool to hear that he was a veteran and stuff.
Those are the only channels the governments are really interested in and watching.
I love you. Right, they put everything through the CIA mainframe so they don't have to leave their house to look through it,
Yep.
Make it disappear in their own eyes.
I think it's not for the government as much as the majority of people who don't have the ability that the government might have, but there's some pretty interesting
I flat up don't believe it because I think the problems lie in your ISP. There's all these places before and after where it falls apart. And you look at something like Silk Road, pretty good privacy tour, didn't protect them. Yeah, they all got taken down.
If they want you, they get you, that's for sure. Hey, welcome, Chimera.
What's up?
Hey, man, don't be flipping anyone off, all right?
Hey, Johnny.
Hey, Johnny. Hey, everybody. Hey, Johnny. Hey, Johnny. Hey. We love you.
I know. Thanks.
It's okay. It's your friends that don't bust your balls. Those are the ones you got to watch, okay? They're up to something.
Right.
That's true.
That's what Mark had to do a picture. He had to really show me. That's awesome. As I come back,
It was driving me nuts.
finger up thing.
Nuts. It's too hard to go through 4 hours and find out a thing like that. But some like, okay, there it is. Because I was even like, did I give him the finger? Like, I don't remember giving him the finger. Not that it would have been giving him the finger, because we're all in Hash Church. It would have been giving literally the 10,000 people that are watching the finger. But that was a funny experience.
Oh, yeah. Everybody was sitting there wondering, was it me? Was it me? Oh, my God.
Todd definitely was like, oh, my God, don't let it be me.
I was literally like, oh.
We don't get many hash gods on here. Let's not piss them off.
Yeah, only Sam every week.
Only Sam every week, and he would let us flip him off.
Whoa. He'd have Sam do it back.
Exactly. The next week, he'd have Sam's hand up with a middle finger.
What are you guys medicating or recreating or adult using today?
Whoa, we're gonna go with adult use Kush.
I think I'm on that marijuana.
Oh, and then I only have the entire Secret Cup campout kit because my friends love me.
Hey, what's going on with the secret cup? I heard people were getting searched by up in Humboldt by the Cali police. It was
Well,
like
you know way more than I do then, bro.
I
Where did you
saw it this
where did you
morning.
hear this?
I figured you'd be all over it. It was a guy who was like, is it Daniel DeSalle who does? Yeah. It said, oh, fuck Secret Cup. And then in brackets it said, not you, Daniel, not the cup. And then it was like, the fucking cops have dogs. They're searching everyone's cars, going in and coming out or whatever. And I don't want to be inaccurate in that, but I wanted to put it out there. Maybe someone in the chat room knows if this happened. Really bummer if it did. It's such a great event to hear that the police would try and go and bomb it out would be pretty shitty to hear. But yeah, I read it on a few posts just really quickly this morning on Facebook. We'll have to wait to see if anyone knows any more information about that.
I was there last year and we had no police presence. It was really great. I don't remember seeing not one uniformed officer anywhere around the event last year, and it's really disheartening.
I've never heard of a cop at any Secret Cup event. Do they normally go?
Arizona, no. Well, Arizona, the guys got hassled, but Arizona. What can I say? But no, normally they go really smoothly, and I honestly, it's been a surprise to me that these guys can even pull this off. Because at 30, right now there's what 30, 32 or so entries. That has to account for 1 in 100 hash makers. I mean, how many hash makers literally take extra, go compete, socialize, meet people? It's got to be a very small percentage. So I was impressed that they've been able to pull this together for years, to be honest.
Well, I'm kind of hoping that it wasn't, maybe it was less than what I read, and if it was more than what I read or identical to what I read, then I don't know. I hope everyone's safe out there and that those cops aren't trying to mess with people's days too badly. Hate to hear that when we make a couple of steps forward and then we take a bunch of steps backwards.
Well, and we're looking at the potential legalization in California, so a lot of them are going on their last stands.
Right.
Honestly, there's a lot of money still in this, and they see the writing on the wall. They have for a while because their budgets have gone down, and now, you're staring at November, and you've got the lieutenant governor and others that are promoting it currently. So, strategically. Yeah, it's their last run at the OK Corral for these guys.
Yeah, D. Olbrandt says Mendocino has had helicopters in the air for the last week and that they're already taking plants.
That's been going on for a blip now, for sure. We've been getting, needless to say, the network up north, posts when there's a lot of helicopters and policemen assembled on the highway, and that stuff's been going on for a few months now. It's just going to escalate now, but they know about light death, and they've been going after it or trying to make a dent. But again, it's their last stand, They've already got their budgets cut, and once legalization's passed, it's done.
Yeah. Well, 25 years ago, I'll never forget driving through the Kootenays for the first time with my friends and, going to plant some plants and play in the ground type of thing. And roadblock, and it's like, okay, it's a roadblock. I'm like, no worries, we got really nothing. And my buddy's like, what do you mean? We have shovels, we have dirt, we have like mix, we have all the things they're looking for. I'm like, what? And they were literally pulling people over looking for gardening supplies, not cannabis plants. And there were no charges being laid, but it was like they were gathering information. They were writing down the plate numbers. They were taking ID from the people. And it was like, can you imagine people with gardening supplies getting harassed on the side of the road? Kootenays have come a long way.
Well, that's the war that people have been living under up north. If you talk to people who've lived in Humboldt, Mendocino, Trinity, they've been living under a war zone for decades. So they've become accustomed to it, unfortunately, but they're also still shell-shocked from it because it's been going on for so long.
In India, up in the Himalayas, the Indians would grab people that they suspected of rubbing their own hash and look and see if their hands had calluses in the typical shape of hash rubbers, and then they'd hassle them if they did.
One of the overt criminal acts I was charged with in the 90s was purchasing ladybugs for the manufacturer of marijuana. I was like, really? How do you manufacture marijuana? That's a trick, right? They don't want to use the word cultivate. It sounds too natural. But ladybugs? Oh, yeah, ladybugs, man. Using them.
Were you charged with insecticide?
Whoa! Technically. No, that wasn't, actually. That's funny, though.
And I used to buy 3 million of ladybugs a year.
Well, at least they didn't charge you with using them to manufacture marijuana. Just kidding. Kind of crazy, though. You know, to think, there's a story on the web right now about some guy in LA who died, you know, had a heart attack or whatever, and he stockpiled $5 million worth of guns and ammunition, and the people that are inheriting it don't want it. They all want it destroyed. But it's kind of funny to me that some crazy psycho can literally hoard like 1,500 weapons or whatever the crazy number was, and the cops off their radar completely. You know, I got 1,000 plants in my backyard. They're on that shit like, oh, whoa. Hey, man, I see flowers everywhere. It's just so stupid.
That wasn't the same guy that was, like, died mysteriously, like, in his truck or something, and then...
His family's rejecting the $5 million inheritance. They don't want to sell the guns. They're going to have them destroyed.
They thought that guy was a part of, like, some intelligence or some sort of government group, did they not?
He said that, but it came out that he was married to somebody that he basically spent her money on all that crap. So he basically spent his wife's money because he never filed a tax return, the story said, and he never held a job. Yeah. But he had all these assault vehicles and tons of fucking weapons and all this other crap. Doomsdayer, yeah. But that's okay in America, man. You can stockpile weapons that you're probably never going to need, but if you grow flowers because your friends are sick and you intend to help them out, they're on you, bro. They're on you.
They definitely are. It's definitely like a topsy-turvy thing where everyone feels like you don't understand. We absolutely have the right to bear arms. It's like, what about us? Don't you have the
Don't we have the right to be alive? I mean, I don't get how the Second Amendment overrides a person's right to collect it, be at a party, and not get fucking shot. You know, some little redneck kid has more of a right to go buy a gun than we all have to just be alive.
Yeah, guns are a good one. You know, they're like mentioning religion or vaccinations. People immediately get offended, whether you're speaking about them in a positive way or in a negative way. There's always a huge group of people just sitting there waiting to be like, what did he fucking say?
Well, you know what? I say the same thing all the time, that the Second Amendment should go the way of the 18th Amendment. And half the fucking gun owners I say that to stop and go, what was the 18th Amendment? Oh, that's the one that repealed the other amendment that prohibited alcohol? So we do repeal amendments here in America. Happens all the fucking time, actually.
I thought it was.
And I think the Second Amendment should be repealed. I'll say it straight up. These fucking people are too irresponsible, and it's not about protecting us from an invading army anymore. It's literally about gun manufacturers just making shit tons of money. That's it. That's all it's about. Can't stop selling guns because we can't stop making money. That's it.
Yep.
Yep.
Do not generalize all gun owners, Chili Boo says. Yes, it's true, Chili Boo. We're not trying to generalize, just having a conversation about something that you could never win if you were in an argument.
Do you know what kills me, though, is I don't understand why more gun owners who are responsible aren't the loudest voices for gun control. Because, I mean, that would be what makes sense, you know, but instead they all freak out overlooking the fact that we got little high school faggots going out buying AR-15s, walking into a party where they fucking girl dumped them a week ago and shooting 3 people. I mean, that should nullify all of the shit. You know, all the gun owners should be like, that's not what these are intended for. That's fucked up.
Yeah, you know, I took my son. I'm not a gun guy at all. I don't really try to fall on either side of the argument, although I'm not a gun guy, so I definitely don't. Like, I've lived my whole life without a gun. It's been pretty easy. No one's shot me or killed me, and I haven't felt the urge to protect my family with a gun any more than with my brain and with other things. But, you know, I took my son to a shooting range up in Pemberton a couple of weeks ago, and we shot AR-15 assault rifles and other crazy guns that I don't even know the names of. We shot about 12 different ones, handguns, rifles, and all sorts of things. It was really fun. We had a great time. It was exciting, and it was loud, and it was kind of had a smell, and it was neat. You felt the guns on your shoulder after shooting them. But it didn't make me want to go out and own like a bunch of them. It didn't make me want to make it so nobody could own them. I don't think that's what gun control is about. I think it's just about maybe like not letting terrorists have guns and stuff.
Well, it's become more of a mental health issue here in America because people are just going off. I mean, we have terms for it here, going postal. That goes back to an actual massacre where a post guy went and killed somebody. Then that happened again and went and massacred. So we coined a term for it, going postal. And now we look at it and we laugh, and it is just such an inherent part of our reality. We don't necessarily discuss the issue that we have a lot of mentally unstable people who have access to guns and ammunition consistently.
Dude, the kid in Washington bought the gun a week before.
If I was a pro-gun person, I would say we have to ban postal workers. Maybe we should just get rid of post offices.
Dude, post offices are dangerous, man.
The only really core problem is that just like drugs can't be kept out of the hands of crazies, neither can weapons. I mean,
You know
let's
what,
be
though?
honest.
The problem with that is that we're condoning the manufacturing of millions of weapons a year because the weapons manufacturers are strong lobby groups called the NRA, and there's no stopping them. You know, the ATF has not had an acting director for like 20 friggin' years. If you go look up the bureaucracies, handicaps, and bullshit. The DEA has had no problem staying organized and funded, but the ATF, for whatever reason, can't handle it. You know, and that's just a direct result of the lobbying groups that don't want them to handle it. And I don't know, if they have time to harass me... Okay, someone's got to learn how to keep their mic muted, huh, Mark? But the problem is that if they use their time and resources to go shake down every kid with a garden in his basement, but they just don't give a shit about the guns, it clearly shows their agenda. You know, we don't have big groups in Washington D.C. protecting our rights as farmers. I mean, the little groups we have, the National Cannabis Industries Association, are only like 5 and 6 years old. They're not half a century plus. They're not funded by millions and millions and millions of dollars.
We don't have 1,000 lobbyists out there right now.
Maybe we do. Maybe we need them. Maybe that's the next step. Hash lobbyists, the HRA.
We do need them. We need them. We need them arguing for environmental protections. We need them arguing for equal rights. We need them arguing for our right to grow hemp instead of just having to use cotton and other things all the time. I mean, hemp is a great biomass. I mean, that's the problem cannabis has had. It hasn't had a strong voice ever fighting for it. I mean, you go back to normal. They weren't fighting for the whole plant. They were fighting for a small sliver. They were fighting for adult use. That was their angle. Their angle was adults should be able to smoke weed. They didn't care about the environment. They didn't care about medical at first. Whoa, someone's dying.
Yeah, I had to do it.
But you know, my message to my friends and my brothers and sisters who are in the cannabis community and that, you know, have Instagrams and post photos of their buds, their kids, and their guns all on the same page, please stop it. Because all that happens if the cops come is you get an incredibly high enhancement for having possession of a gun. That's it. They just charge you with, they take away the guns, they take away your Second Amendment, and they charge you more time, and they just screw you over more. That's all that's going to happen. You know, I had a friend who got robbed on Father's Day, 3 in the afternoon, by a guy that knocked on his door, asked if he could get a pen and a paper to leave his neighbor a note. My friend Scott turned around, he put a pillowcase over his head, zip-tied his neck, fucking beat him up, stole his guns. So his guns not only weren't helpful, they got stolen, and then when that guy ended up getting busted for robbing drug dealers, which my friend at the time in the 80s was, the cops found his registered guns at the thief's house, called him in and said, "Why didn't you report your guns stolen?" Oh. So, oh yes, guns can be nothing but a problem, you know? And that's what I asked him after he got robbed. I was like, fuck, you had guns? He was like, they stole the guns. I was like, oh, that's embarrassing.
You should read the chat, because you definitely have about 83% of people disagreeing with everything you say.
I don't care. I lived above Scott when he got robbed.
If you want to create a dialogue, you should read the chat, because
I can't. I'm not on the YouTube.
They're saying things. that you might want to hear as you're, saying your opinions. That's all. It's we should talk about vaccines now and see if we can get them more upset.
I love it.
Yeah, no, I'm not going to. But it's funny how people are like, let's talk about hash, fucking guns. It's like, well, what about guns? What about guns made out of hash? Can we talk about that?
Well, how many people protect their hash with their guns?
I don't. Well, you mean these guns?
I mean, I don't own any weapons. I'm a combat veteran. I've used every weapon down the line practically in the military. And I don't own one, but I respect people's rights to have and use them. I live in a protected society to the most part, but, I'm also wise. I don't have people over or know where I live and things like that because we take those precautionary realities due to what we do. That's a reality, that we face. People want, it must be easy to own a marijuana store, and it's like, then I tell them the story about the guy in Southern California who went out to the desert getting high, and apparently some people watched him doing this every night, and then they kidnapped him and tortured him, cut off his penis, threw it away, and left him for dead, and the guy survived. And it turns out he was just going out in the desert and getting high. He wasn't burying money at all, but because his friends suspected that that's what he was doing since he owned a dispensary, that's a reality, people. That's no bullshit.
Well, in the meantime, I think I'm going to load up another bowl of some rosin here and maybe, maybe slowly direct the conversation over to hash, because
I had to make rosin this morning. That's what I was doing. When you guys were talking about guns, I was swishing and making my morning. Yeah.
You were using your guns to make rosin.
That's what I was doing. I think everybody should own a hair straightener or something. No.
Maybe a couple of hair straighteners, maybe a quiver of hair straighteners. Hey, that bubble box looks way out of the way up there. Are you still getting use out of that thing or what?
Oh, I just talked about that. Right here.
I mean, I know you got the big screen, so I bet you don't. I bet you must roll joints still, though.
Yeah, I rolled joints right here, right there. I just rolled the joint this morning because I needed one. That was down at the beach, and of course I did my sifting this morning, and I talked about the bubble box, and yeah, that's why it's sitting here. It's kind of
as easy as it is to smoke hash. The joint is seemingly the most convenient way to just on the go, just like boot. Not that I have smoked one in like over 14 years, but it definitely seems like. Oh, Cuban's calling you out, Johnny B. Says that's a pinner. You better roll a fatter one.
Well, that's because it was laced with hash.
How small is your joint?
Todd's got a pretty big joint.
No, my joints have to be about 1.5 to 1.8. That's my happy place.
Mine's always a 1.1. Quite consistently. I used to weigh them and stuff like that. I have a consistent around a gram joint. It's what I like to smoke. Kind of gets me there.
I used to smoke 3 and 4 gram joints out of Lion of Judah rolling papers towards the end there. It was lots of trips to Jamaica, and they're all 4 or 5 grams is not really the biggest joint on the block type of thing. And it lasts for a pretty long time, but it's kind of what got me towards the end of this smoking thing, because I was smoking these 3 and 4 gram joints, and I was smoking a lot of them, like so many in a day, like for sure 20 or 15 of them, like an absurd amount, and it just it was a lot of smoke to be around, I'll tell you that much.
Yeah, I used to roll little fatties like Todd there, closer toward the 2 gram than the 1 gram, because that's what worked for me, and I would just be rolling through those in a day. Because hanging around Todd, that kind of becomes a habit. Yeah, I went through way too much herb, but since I've been dabbing, I have to say it's really cut it down quite significantly by having the concentrates around. So thank you, Bubbleman and others for, INDRA and others for creating these other methodologies for us to ingest, because I've definitely saved my lungs a lot more tar and vegetable matter.
Hey, 2 joints per eighth is totally reasonable.
No, the joints I used to like a lot, but the concentrates are what got me off of the pharma. That was the key main points of the concentrates and how they helped me, right? All the different. I mean, I started with BHO and stuff like that, but as I moved forward into the raw, actually it was the dry sift and the bubble hashes and stuff. That's when I really started finding the difference. Concentrates played a key role in my pain management, and if it wasn't for those concentrates, I was rolling joints like that, like solid. I can never get that proper hit, and I think that's been what I see in the industry now is a lot of people on concentrates are the ones that are like me. I used to dab like crazy because I was in so much pain. Now I don't have to smoke as much, so concentrates are good for everybody. I think it's the best way for pain management, in my opinion.
Yeah, I've never seen relief from a person who needed cannabis as quickly or as much as I've seen a person using the extracts. Cannabis, like joints, would be great. LV Musica would chain smoke joints all day, all night. Every moment she was awake, she'd have joints in her hand. But she does dabs. She doesn't have the glaucoma headache. She can see clearer. She's watching TV. She's more content. You can see a night and day difference. And she sits there and doesn't smoke for a while, which to me was like a whole new thing because literally puff, 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 puff. And now she does a hit. It's cool for a while. Does another hit. It's changed everything.
I was talking to a friend yesterday on the way down the mountain, my friend Ricarda. She has Crohn's disease. I met her actually snowmobiling, but recently went dirt bike riding with her the other day, and we were sitting afterwards. She's from Germany but living here in BC, and she was telling me about her parents, and they're very German and not really into the smoking thing, didn't really know she was smoking or using cannabis as a medicine because she just kept it to herself. But they had come for a visit, and she was driving with them, and I guess she had some inflammation. She was just getting really, really bad pain to the point where she couldn't even sit in the car seat anymore, and it was so bad that she was like, oh my God, I'm gonna have to tell my dad that I need a dab. So she told her dad, I need a dab. He pulled over. He's trying to set the car up and turn the AC on for her and be real, kind of like he didn't really understand what it was she needed to do, but he knew she needed to do something. And the story of this gentleman, this very straight German gentleman, seeing how much pain relief his daughter got in an instant from a dab, not even being able to sit, like so much in pain, to, oh, I feel much better now, like we can go again and back to conversation. That, in my opinion, is what is going to change and end prohibition. The final, it started with Dravet syndrome in small children having epileptic seizures, and of course the visual of them stopping once the drop of oil goes under their tongue. But I think it's important for all of these different people who get relief from cannabis to show that relief to people who have been deeply brainwashed by the propaganda over the course of the last, whatever it's been, 80 years.
Hey, we all find out in our own way, At least people are finding out and have access to know. And look, thankfully, there's a lot of information out there that people can access through the that series of tubes out there. And it's made quite a significant difference because, people are becoming more educated. I was telling Todd when we had our opening at Incline Village, had a patient come in that already talked to her doctor and had a list of 5 different genetics that she wanted to try for her condition. That really set me aback. And fortunately, we had a couple of the growers there from the state of Nevada to say, hey, do you have these genetics? And they're like, well, we got 3 of those 5. So it starts then a whole other conversation of, okay, well, now we understand that potentially for this type of condition, these cannabis have anecdotally been available or seem to have worked. So, we try that, and it just gives access and understanding more and more to more people, and it just shows you how educated the patient is becoming, and even the doctors themselves, because, doctors in California, you can't prescribe it, but to see that Nevada physicians are going as far as looking into specific genetics now to specific conditions is definitely a step forward quite considerably than I think the discussion we've had currently.
Sounds like Nevada had a bit of a setback this week. The Attorney General is saying that they can't accept California, like they'd accept California state cards, but they wouldn't accept doctor's notes.
Yeah, that's a reality that seems to be coming down the pike for California. Nevada will reciprocate from other states, but yeah, that came down on Friday, so we're still reading into that interpretation to see what fully transpires. But we think that will probably end up being the case, which is odd because it's not like the other states are writing actual prescriptions that could be honored. So it makes me wonder if the other states will fall in line with them as well over time, or is California only the first? Because you got to understand, California and Nevada touch each other, so they always have issues, and they usually been very unsavory to the other.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's really, like, when I was working down in Cali, it was recommended to go and get the state card, because even if you had the, the doctor's note or the card that they'd try to sell you at the clinic, a cop still could pull you in, and the only thing that would really get you off was actually pulling out the state card.
Well, it depends again on the officer and who you're dealing with. And see, with the new law, if Prop 64 passes, in there is they're going to have a discount that medical patients will no longer have to pay the 9 or whatever the county over-the-counter tax is. So they're encouraging people. I think it's also lowering the card price. So it's going to encourage this new system through MRSA to have people that are patients, because they're figuring there's not going to be as many patients now due to the recreational potentially being legal. But they want to have access to the card, and then by having the card, when you show that at a dispensary, then you're eligible for the not having to pay the over-the-counter tax.
Oh, so you didn't have the state card? You couldn't use like a 420 doc or whatever?
No, it's going to be a lot more difficult for doctors to write. I think one of the main reasons for MRSA is they actually made it a lot more difficult for physicians to be doc in the boxes per se, but they're not anticipating those with recreational.
Well, there's some really shifty stuff going on with those docs. I mean, there was one guy he was from one of the Slavic countries, and he was setting up these clinics and sticking doctors in. And I know when I got my card, the doctor that I saw had Huntington's disease. He couldn't practice medicine. He was clearly fucked right up. And someone was taking advantage of him because he probably couldn't afford to live if he wasn't signing these forms.
Well, and it's a lucrative cash business for them as well. And it's not, they're not being monitored per se, and that's one of the reasons why a lot of us dispensaries decide to separate ourselves and not have doctors inside, although regular pharmacies have a doctor sometimes or pharmacist on hand, to educate people. But with cannabis, not so much.
Well, it's different, though. Under the California law, all it is, it's not legalized. It's just an affirmative defense. So we do not have the protections afforded to the pharmacy in any way whatsoever. And as somebody who had cancer, I do feel the statement Dennis Perone made after the passage of 215 was an honest statement when he said that he felt that all cannabis use was medical use to some extent. And I believe that on a lot of levels, but there are people that are going through really severe medical conditions that use cannabis in a way that it really, really, really helps them. People with glaucoma, people with cancer, people with AIDS. This isn't just, smoking a joint to treat, mild depression because you have a really crappy job, and, it's different. And for people that are going through really severe things, for them to be able to get a discount, not have to pay the tax, that's going to only help them. But I think doctors have been abusing the law in California for quite a while. I mean, I got into an argument with a doctor who wanted to buy a booth at my THC Expo in 2009 and set up and start writing prescriptions in the LA Convention Center on my trade show floor. And I was like, dude, you're a quack. I would never allow that. You negate everything that we've tried to do to take this seriously when you show up and you'll just be a paper mill in a booth. And he was offended, but I was offended too. I was like, I don't want your money. I'm not going to let you do that. But then after that happened, I watched every other shitty expo do the same thing, and I thought so little of them.
Yeah.
Back to doctors charging money to sign scripts. I mean, obviously, it's so necessary. People need it so bad, they do it anyway. But talk about showing how low of an integrity that you have as a doctor, that you're going to go for this cash grab, $200, $300, $400, $500, charge people to sign a license.
Hold on, can I say this, Mark? And this is where it gets more offensive. I wouldn't have a problem if they were charging $300 or $400 or $500 and showing up to court. Because if a person gets busted and they go, hey, look at my doctor's note, and they go call the doctor, and the doctor goes, isn't around, none available, knows nothing about what you're talking about, you have no defense. That's not worth the $45 piece of paper that you paid for, and that's a majority of what these fake doctors at the expos and stuff are doing. Because if you ever get in trouble and you ever have to call on them, they are not going to be able to show up in a courtroom and be able to testify on your behalf with any amount of sincerity that they have checked you out, given you a physical, know your medical condition, have access to your medical records, know anything about you, or have anything that resembles a doctor-patient relationship in front of the court.
And again, that's even if they will show up.
Yeah, just charging people in general, it's pretty low quality in my opinion.
It gets
like,
worse.
I'm
and then they
really
lie.
sorry that you guys weren't able to find a good doctor in California like I did. My doctor was an Indian doctor named, and this is no joke, his name was Dr. Toke.
So here's something in Canada. They have these licensed producers, and they got to get prescriptions. And since these licensed producers have come into effect, there's been like over 20 of these clinics have popped up over Canada that are writing prescriptions for patients. And now I'm being told from a few people, one is even my father-in-law, he pays $200 every 3 months to get a prescription for 90 days.
Oh, wow.
Covered.
Major.
This is in New Brunswick and stuff like that. So it's interesting in how this whole system is changing as we're going to have new regs coming up on the 24th. There's more of these clinics. I actually have a list, of course, because I'm contacting them and stuff like that. But there's a lot of these clinics popping up, and they're charging, and those prescriptions are only good for 60 to 90 days. They're not like the MMAR where they're good for a year from what I'm being told. So it's a different system. It's more of a, yeah, you hear what I'm saying? It's interesting how this thing is starting to play out.
I also hate how here in California the doctors will lie to people and tell them for an additional amount of money they can give them another form that will allow them to grow more plants.
Yeah.
That's so common out here, and it's bullshit.
Yeah, it is. I thought it was really funny, too, that only certain doctors would do that. Like, when I went in and got my script, just the patient script, they said, if you come back on Saturday with an extra $200, then we'll write you a license for 99 plants, and they said that they would testify if you had any problems and all that kind of stuff.
Which is total horseshit. Under the Patrick Kelly case, there are no plant limits in California anymore because LA prosecuted one gentleman named Patrick Kelly for having one plant over the 6-plant limit proposed by SB 420. The 3-panel appellate court ruled that that the number 6 was an arbitrary number, and they sent the case back to LA. LA didn't like the hearing, it didn't like the ruling, so they sent it to the full 9-judge appellate. And the Supreme Court of California, all 9 judges agreed with 3 judges that the state of California had no right to limit the scope of 215 and rescinded the 6-plant limit. So there are if you type in medical marijuana in California, you're going to see that plant limits, there are none, because they had no basis to set them with. But you have to go in and you have to argue that you have a reasonable need for whatever plant amount you have.
Yeah.
And that's still maintained under Prop 64. It maintains the medical situation that even though it says 6 plants per adult, that's for non-medical. If you're medical, you can still
argue against any plant limit.
Correct. In any county with any officer, etc. And you can.
Well, it's not against the officer. The officer's going to arrest you and bring you for the judge. The
Understood,
judge gets to figure it out.
Yes, but I've seen people present that information and their defense directly to the police, and the police release them. So it depends, again, who you're dealing with, what the situation is, and always, no matter what the situation, people, be respectful of police officers. They are just doing their jobs. Don't be assholes. Don't be crass. Realize where you are in the situation you're in. Suck it up. Bite your fucking lip. Shut up. And listen to whatever your lawyer says, which means shut the fuck up until your lawyer is present. End of story.
Well, yeah, you can politely not say anything. I always try to be polite to the cops. I feel like, why argue with the pawns in the chessboard? It's clearly someone behind them telling them to go up there and talk to you. So I was always polite to them. I've never gotten my ass kicked. I've never really been ever, other than arrested over and over and over and over and over, they've never been really mean to me when they arrest me. They're always pretty polite to me as they haul my ass off to jail.
They've probably never seen your gun rants.
No, I was getting arrested pre-gun rants, bro. The gun rants only started in the latest little while. I'm just getting sick of it. And people don't understand. I'm a former gun owner. When I turned 18, guess what I did? I ran out and I bought an M11. I bought it with extra pieces. I got the 32-round clip. So I understand the fascination. I also got rid of it, and I also realized the NRA sucks. I was a member of the NRA for a year, and then I woke up. You know, for a minute I thought it was an organization for the people. Then I realized it was an organization for the gun manufacturers, and I don't like being used. And this is where my views on gun ownership in America changed. And then, honestly, becoming a marijuana activist, you lose your Second Amendment right. As soon as you're a convicted felon, bye-bye Second Amendment right. And it kind of sucks. And you got to realize that I just think that the gun laws only protect the people making the guns. That's it. All the rest of us are fucked.
Isn't that how all the laws work?
Yeah, they control. You know, look at the alcohol lobby, and this is why you know, when you look at rescinding alcohol prohibition, it created an industry. If we remove the Second Amendment, it ends an industry. It will totally inhibit gun makers' ability to make billions, if not trillions, of dollars a year. It has to be trillions. I mean, Canon camera alone makes over $1 trillion a year. Contemplate that.
Well, look at how they increased by saying Obama was going to take your guns, et cetera, et cetera. All it led to was record gun sales. And you know what? Not a single gun law. But, you know, who made out like bandits in the end? I'd say the NRA and the gun manufacturers, without a doubt. You know, none of that ammo manufacturing. You know, more gun owners I know complained about having no access to ammo in the last couple of years because people have been stockpiling it because of fear that they were going to have their weapons taken away. And here it is 8 years later, and it hasn't happened.
It would be great to turn a bunch of those guns into rosin plates.
Dude, press them all, those things. You know, I want to apologize for using the word faggot earlier. I actually like gay people. I got no problem with gay people. I didn't mean that in any derogatory way towards my gay friends at all. Just that fucking kid. I don't know what you could use to describe him better, but...
You meant fuckboy.
Perfect.
And
Perfect.
as we say, an ass hat doing ass hattery.
Oh, that one's good too, but
Wow.
Yeah, and then we can start talking about the death penalty. That'd be great, right?
Oh, yeah, and vaccine.
And religion, why not? Let's just go for the whole gusto. Let's have a smorgasbord of...
Is this not church?
Is there a religious vaccine? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, it's called reading the Bible.
It's called weed. It makes its users irreverent towards authority. This is why the Catholic Church banned cannabis hundreds of years ago.
Okay, so I just
because
did a dab, and I used my little heady little glass for a carb cup, and I just had to say it was awesome.
Dude, that's like coolest little coffee mug. I love it. Is that handmade?
Handmade. Gibson from Gibson Glass blew it for me, and I love this little. Like I drink espressos every morning, so it's like my.
I'd love to drink one of that while tripping on acid.
I needed a carb cap. I'm like, oh my god! I gotta tell you guys how this just works so well. I'm so happy.
That's looking a little thin for an espresso. It looks more like an Americano.
No, it's well, I kind of that's a triple shot though.
It's pretty light colored, dude. You spend a little bit of time in Italy, you get a whole different appreciation for espresso.
Yeah.
Not espresso.
So
you realize caffeine can be a hard drug, is what you realize.
You know what? There's actually less caffeine per mil in an espresso because it doesn't spend as long time with the bean.
Interesting.
Then what gives you the jolt?
Todd and I were reading up on the different, the BHO caffeine method the other day when I came across an interesting article that also showed that they've used water as well. Like they're the same processes that you can use for cannabis.
Yeah, yes, and it stated it was a solvent too.
Yeah, well, it's used as a solvent because it's actually pulling out from the fresh green bean. It's not actually a mechanical transfer chamber separation area. It's actually being used as a solvent. So you can call it.
No, I think it's correct, Mark. You know what, though? And the more we talk about water hash, I think that you have to realize the only time water is not a solvent with the oil is if it's in a cold and proper pH range. Because if it's warm and if it's very alkaline, it's absolutely going to destroy it. It's going to emulsify that fat faster than shit.
Yeah, and we've always agreed, everyone can agree that it is always working slightly as a solvent. That's why the water is not clear when you're done working. It's a dark color, so it's obviously pulled things out of the plant matter that are now present in the water, and that's...
it breaks down the mold, it breaks down the chlorophyll, it breaks down a ton of shit you don't want, really. It dissolves a ton of your terpenes now that we're all terpene heads. That's a drag. That's why the water smells so good.
We are almost talking hash. They're just like itching for hash talk.
Well, it's interesting because now you're seeing other states that are starting to talk about self-irradiation. So we had talked previously about irradiation and how the Dutch have done it, but now I'm hearing from people in some of the legal states that the states are coming to them and saying, you guys need to figure out a way to self-irradiate or you're not going to pass the microbial tests. So that's a new discussion that's starting to happen.
Well, that's
nonsense.
But that's nonsense.
I understand it's nonsense, but this is what's starting to come down the pike.
To say that you have to irradiate to pass a microbial test is ridiculous. To pass a microbial test, you have to have below the threshold of microbes on the plant, right? So you can do that by good cultivation practices, or you can grow shitty bud that has bacteria on it, and then you can gamma irradiate it, and the mold and the spores will die.
Well, we know the latter is actual medicine, though. Currently.
Well, speaking from Holland, I can tell you that irradiated dope is way better, especially at night, because you don't need to turn the light on to find your buds, man.
So Sam, what about the idea of like when Ryan just mentioned, good grow practices? You're growing, say, tons of cannabis. It's got to go a little bit past just great grow. I mean, for instance, Chimera. One of the things that I did how I met INDRA, when he was telling me about all these processes, I wanted him to, because I have so many people coming out online telling me these things, I kind of wanted a little bit of proof. And so what I figured out was, if he could defat cannabis or de-resin, pull the resin off of cannabis, he should be able to defat cannabis seeds. And so we got to talking, and I sent him some Manitoba Harvest hemp seed that was purchased, in Kansas where he was living at a grocery store, and shipped to him, the dehulled seed, and he defatted it with his cryogenic process. And of course, it blew the lab away. They'd never seen a protein powder isolate that high. It was over 60%. I think Manitoba Harvests was 50% with their cold pressing techniques. But one of the things was that I guess, when hemp oil goes bad, it produces this sort of turpentine smelling product. Have you smelled that before?
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. What was funny is when my grandmother smelled hemp seed oil that was going bad, her eyes lit up and she said, "It reminds me of a little girl." She says, "This reminds me of the paints and varnishes when I was a little girl." It was really quite awesome.
Yeah, so that it found, and this was sold in the grocery store, as a food pro. The labs all found pretty high percentages of whatever it is that makes that smell. I think it was like terpene. It was actually a word very much like turpentine, but a little bit different. Kind of blew me away. So I'm wondering, with large amounts of cannabis, and don't get me wrong, I'm not arguing for irradiated cannabis in any way, but once we get like tons of it and then we have to move it and stuff, is it just going to be, like produce and refrigerated, and, can mold be, I had this argument as well, and not really an argument, but a discussion. Kirk Toussaud mentioned that the Globe and Mail did this thing in Toronto. They went and bought a bunch of different bud from a bunch of dispensaries, and they ran it and they tested for microbials and a few other things, and some passed and some didn't. And Kirk was saying, "Oh, why do we need to do this? It's like, do you do this to everyone that sells bananas?" And another guy came in and said, "Yeah, I had strawberries this morning and there was a moldy one and I just threw it away." And my argument was like, but did you ignite the strawberry with mold on it and inhale it into your lungs? Because we really should notice that the stomach and the lungs are two very, very different beasts. I'm not saying against or for, just trying to create a discussion about it.
Well, hey, listen, I'll come out and say for. I thought that Kirk's an incredibly, incredibly intelligent.
Yeah, I like all the things that he said.
But that argument, I thought, it came off as, I represent these clients and this statement benefits these clients. It's not good enough. Like, it's not good enough to just look at weed. Sure, that's what we've been doing for the last 30, 40 years, but there's a reason that we've been doing it, and it's called prohibition, right? Like, nobody had access to labs. So now that we have access to labs, let's fucking use them. There's no argument. There's no valid argument saying dispensaries should not test for microbials, dispensaries should not test for cannabinoids, all that kind of stuff. So, yeah, I thought that I didn't really side with Kirk on that. I thought a lot of the other stuff that he was saying made sense, but it's not really good enough.
Well,
at the same time, if we could talk about that article a little bit more, what happened was, the situation in Canada is not like it is in California, where if you're a patient, you can take your weed to SC Labs or Steep Hill or Excelsior or any of these labs that are operating in the state and give them herb. In Canada, if you take, even as a patient, if I take herb and I even hand it to another patient, like Bubbleman, that's technically trafficking. So if you take your weed to a lab, that's also trafficking, right? It's the act
and distribution if you leave it there.
Right, and well, this is the same thing we faced here in California, because back then it was illegal, and you couldn't test, so we had to basically deal underground with laboratories for years to actually do so. So maybe that's what you have to do. You have to find some sympathetic people around your laboratories to set up one on the side that you can actually start running and doing stuff. You saw John starting to do his own, but no offense, John, we still need to have real scientists doing it. Because
100%. For me, this is just me looking at my research, what I'm doing.
Well, yeah, he's not doing biological. He's not doing biologicals. He's not doing microbials.
Right, you're not doing plate counts and things.
I'm looking at just how a plant develops.
But we've created that here. Now we have to have plate counts. I have to know what these top 20 herbicides, pesticides are. I have to know what the THCA and the THC and the CBN and the CBD and have it clearly marked.
Right. So the difference here is that the government that actually licenses the laboratories to do this work tells them they can't deal with anybody but the licensed producer.
Right, so you have to find somebody who's going to either works in them, set up something on the side, or create one underground.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what we did, and you know what happened? Oh, we did it so much that it became law, and now these laboratories can come out into the light and say, hey, we can actually test your cannabis.
Well, yeah,
doesn't mean they're all doing it right, but at the same time, we realized in 2007 that this wasn't happening, so we had to go find, the right people with the right calibration equipment and bring them to the United States, because we couldn't go to the research triangle and get it. So what I'm saying is, Canadians, do it underground. Go create your whole reality the way we did.
It already is doing it, but this kind of brings back the whole circle around to this Globe and Mail test. So Globe and Mail wanted to do this. This discussion's been going on, and I've actually been saying for a couple of years now, that some scientist is going to go into a dispensary and take a bunch of bud off the shelves and run it through their analytic for pesticides and biologicals, and then we're going to get a real story, okay? Well, the Globe and Mail, which is a major newspaper in Canada, in Toronto, decided they were going to do just that. So they went and talked to a whole bunch of different licensed laboratories, and the laboratories came back and said, we can't do this for you because Health Canada might strip our license. They were scared about losing their authorization to do the work. And so one of the companies, an unnamed company, agreed to do exactly that if the Globe and Mail would keep they keep their name out of the report. Okay? Well, that's bullshit, because the whole point of having a fucking lab report is you can validate the lab. You can see, you can question the lab, you can see what their methods are, right? And without that, it's kind of like, who cares that you have something that says it passed or it failed? I looked on, and I'm not a member of the Globe and Mail, so I don't know if they posted it in the story behind, their paywall. But they didn't put enough information out that you could actually see why they failed. So essentially, everybody's making this big song and dance about the fact that 6 passed and 3 failed, but we don't even know how they failed or why they failed, right? And then you have to think about it in the context of the Canadian system. These LP companies actually have to hire someone that's a quality assurance person that actually gets these lab reports back and interprets them, and then that is, after they've been interpreted by the QA person, that's the final word. Well, none of that happened with the Globe and Mail, for one, and for two, The Globe and Mail broke the law by going and buying the weed, and they broke the law by passing it to the laboratory, right? So
100%. I like that point you just put out there. So exactly, like they.
Anyway, but it definitely raises this whole problem, and I do agree with Kirk in what he was saying that it's really it's Health Canada that is playing with Canadians' health by not allowing doctors and patients like Haley or the guy that we had on a couple of weeks ago that has the son with Dravet's, and those people need to have lab testing available to them. It's not good enough to let them grow and not allow them to have the information that they could use to formulate their medicines.
And with Haley and Cheryl, they have to test all the time to find out those ratios, so she doesn't see. So she's got it down to the ratio. So now she needs to always testing the new grows all the time in order to make sure that she's gotten that proper medicine for her daughter. And it's not really offered, but now you have like MDM Labs here, and you also have Wagon Wheel, and they are doing lots of testing for people. So we are seeing some testing that is slowly coming about, but that's only in the past 6 months, not the past 10 years, right? So.
Well, no, and they're like it takes 6 months to get the kinks out of your process, right? So
it took longer than that initially.
What we needs to happen is do what Arno did down in California a bunch of years ago, and that's do a ring test. Right, you take the same samples, you grind them up yourself. You divide you take 5 grams. Say you're sending to 5 labs. You take 5 grams of every sample. You take your weed. Say you take 10 grams of one variety that's high THC. You grind it up into 5 grams, and then into a big pile, and then you divide that up into 10 grams. 5 of those will then be decarboxylated. Okay, so that has no more THC acid. The other 5 are left in their acid forms, and they're all sent to the labs labeled in a code system, so the lab doesn't know what they're getting. And then when you start getting the results back from the lab, you can actually see, flaws in their method.
And that's what we did, and it took time. Look, it really did. I mean, it did start in the midst of a few months, and next thing you know, here we are, nearly 10 years later, and we have laboratories all over the state, and now the state is going to mandatory, actual testing. So, I'm not saying that will happen there in Canada, but we are an actual method that has proven success by going that route.
Yeah, and I think that's that's great evidence to support that. And it really, if Health Canada is in the position of protecting Canadians, they're kind of like the FDA. The FDA is essentially protecting Americans from people that want to market drugs that aren't safe. So there's a whole bunch of guidelines, right, that are put in place to make sure that people are safe. And that's kind of what Health Canada does. But the problem is that in this case, they're inhibiting the information that's going to allow people to avoid harm. And, that's a real problem.
Aren't the LPs have to have testing for all the products that are going out to patients? Like all the licensed producers have testing and everything on all of their packaging. So that's one thing that is happening with that part of the system.
Yeah, but one of the fucking bullshit things about that system is that it's not third party. They can do all that testing in. They can do all that testing in-house.
I thought they had to go with third party for some reason, but I don't know the whole thing around it.
And something else I just wanted to point out too, and we're talking about it's good enough to look at the weed and see if there's mold on it. Those Petri film, I costed out those Petri film little quick tests that SC Labs uses for total coliforms and colony counts, and they're less than $1 a piece. For the just for the consumable aspect of it. Sure, you need the oven and you need to pay your technician and all that kind of stuff. There's extra equipment costs, but man, your consumables are actually pretty cheap. So there's no reason that it can't be done. It can't be done in house. Dispensaries could be doing that on their own.
Look how long it took in California. 215 passed in '96. The first lab wasn't until 9 years later.
Like the machine.
Like we said earlier, this year at Emerald Cup, a whole bunch of samples failed. So this is an ongoing problem.
We saw this at Chalice as well, and we're seeing that's because they actually have laboratories to test.
Yeah, So I think anybody that's wants to get into the testing game should, and be expecting that you're going to be held accountable by knowledgeable people in the industry that are going to test you.
And be prepared to spend a lot of money. I'm not going to lie. I had to spend hundreds of thousands of dollars, never recouped, on just testing. And I continue to spend hundreds of thousands of dollars a year on unrecouped costs of testing, because that's just how it is. If you look at other industries, they actually have their own labs in-house and actually test for consistency of their products all the time in the food market, et cetera, et cetera. So in time, as we become larger, those may become a reality. But we initially looked at that as a dispensary, as whether we should have a lab in-house or if it should be third-party objective. And in the end, I decided to go third-party objective because we didn't want to be the fox watching the hen house in the beginning. It doesn't mean later on, once it's accepted, that isn't won't transpire or be a reality. But initially, when we were starting in California, that's one of the things we all had to decide, is if we were going to test in-house or if we were going to go to real laboratories and let it be objective. And in the end, we let science be science.
Don't the new regs specify that it has to be third party?
Well, this is what I was just about to ask. It's MRSA, not Adult Use of Marijuana Act, that is trying to create this third party distribution. What do you want to call a middleman that is going to be responsible for the testing, and they're going to be working with the producers, and then it puts like a company like BPG in a situation where they're more like a supermarket, where the supermarket is buying from a distribution house that's making sure nothing's going out of the place that doesn't meet, federal and state guidelines for, whatever it is they're talking about,
Yeah, I mean, it makes sense from a regulatory perspective to put the testing at the bottleneck, right? Like, if everything has to bottleneck through distributors, it makes sense to make the distributors be that, they take it in, they hold it, right?
Oh, yeah.
And then after the testing comes through,
it's just a dynamic shift. I mean, but it's also adding cost, because I'm the one who incurred the cost and then passed it on to the patient. Now I'm going to have to pay a middleman who's going to have to pay the cost, et cetera, et cetera. And yeah, so again.
We're in for a whole new price structure anyway. This is the old way, $400 ounces or a memory, and having, no one in between you but maybe one or two middlemen. It's gone. It's gone. And I think that the prices are going to drop as the cost of doing business goes up. So you're going to see all your margins shrink, and that's just the cost of legal business. But the one place you're not going to have to expend money is on lawyers, collect calls from jail, or any of the lost time you spend sitting in a fucking jail because they locked your ass up.
BPG is a little bit of a different case than some of the other dispensaries down there. I mean, you guys are informed. You're a knowledgeable person.
Yeah, but we created this. We've set the standards because there were no standards. There are no standards. So.
But that's what I'm saying, though. It's like, what I'm saying is not all dispensaries are as knowledgeable as you. So it's like, do you really want, do their patients
I would
really
argue
want
very few are, because of the fact that they have set up
but what I'm saying,
years to make money, not to make change.
Right.
BPG is a really weird animal, and I completely agree with you, Camara, that it was an activist organization that had a political mission in a political city from the very start, and it was not your typical Sunset Strip across from the Hustler store, let's make a shit ton of money and stay open till 2 a.m. selling weed all day. It's not the same animal at all.
Right, and that's what I'm saying.
The models don't want to spend the money he's spending to comply and do things right, and they're also not in cities that force them to.
Yeah, well, to me,
forces him to.
Yeah, to me, well, and now it'll be California that forces them to. But to me, like, even if they were to do all that stuff, even if the cities did mandate that those dispensaries had to do all this testing, a lot of them, they're not. The people that run them aren't qualified to either interpret the lab results or to catch problems with the lab or do the sampling. Like, it's not, Etienne went and took a course on all this stuff over in Holland, right? It's not everybody has that experience. So.
Yeah, but we did that to lead by example, because we want to show people how it is done and how it should be done. And what we did is we showed how it can be done and how it should be done. Now, yes, I wish everybody else would have followed suit and had gone the same route, but you know, it doesn't stop me from continuing to look to the next way to set the next standard, because if we don't set the standards ourselves by finding science and utilizing those things that are truly accessible to us, that, you know, Skunkman has known because he's been fortunate to deal with in countries for decades, whereas we had to go and reinvent the wheel. He reinvented the wheel over in Holland to an extent. You know, and it just shows you that you can be passionate about what you do and you can still do it right. It doesn't mean you have to compromise your morals. Our whole concern was the patients. I'm a patient myself. I don't want to harm myself. I don't want to harm any of my patients. So I better know what I'm putting out there, because if I have another death on my soul, I can't anymore. I got enough from my fucking stupid war that I was in. I don't need any more. So I don't want people getting up a respiratory infection that causes them pneumonia, that causes them to die. So that's why we wanted to know what were in the microbials, you know, what were those unseen scenes that we could see visually, but we were still missing something, because that's the reality, is that people still get sick from cannabis. And so it goes back to what we were talking about earlier, which is molds and mildews, and now this potential discussion of self-forced you know, irradiation of your cannabis. You know, it's where we are currently. We're past that testing phase, and now we're to the phase of where certain states don't know how to handle or can't handle the backloads, so they're looking for easier methodologies. So they think, oh, well, since the Dutch have done the irradiation, then irradiation must be the way. It doesn't mean it's the way, because we found out that now that we're all becoming terp sluts, is that there's a lot of terpenes that are become destroyed through, you know, now if we do any type of irradiation, or at least that's the study that we saw initially from Arno. So we need more about that, especially now. It's the same way. Like I said, when we started here in Berkeley, they started to make us go by milk standards because they had no other standard to go by. We had to show them that we have to create the standards themselves. So it's still a constant challenge, and it still will be a challenge, because even with the studies, as we were talking earlier in other episodes, the water in Berkeley fails its own microbial test, that anything that you would do with it automatically would fail. So it just shows you there en route there's science that is flawed in the methodology to get the right education that we need about the product that we know, but that we have to get past the scientific standards or the ignorance of the scientific standards to arrive there together.
Well, I just saw another post from Kirk from yesterday to give him a little defense. He wrote, a recent Twitter exchange and lab testing and risks arise out of the Globe articles. My views are pretty simple. We should have lab testing, and we should have reasonable maximum limits on contaminants. But in doing so, we should not pretend this is a grave and pressing concern. We should understand that consumers have been judging the quality of cannabis with their eyes, noses, and by having a puff for all of the pre-lab testing era, i.e. forever, and have also been consuming some pretty contaminated herb with very little ill effects.
Yeah, but that's bullshit. I mean, I'm sorry. I gotta call him out. I gotta call him.
I think he's talking more of like the people who have been recreational cannabis smokers, and we're talking about patients who are potentially...
No, and I gotta say, I'm glad you called that as bullshit, because I feel it is too. I mean, you know what, that works when you have informed consumers in smaller groups, but when you have the ability of everybody to go pick up cannabis like a loaf of bread, you're going to have a lot of people that are trying cannabis for the first time, don't know what mold looks like. I've seen stoners try to tell me mold was resin.
Mold. I mean, I hear that argument, and it's kind of wishy-washy to me, but you know what? If you change the argument from mold to pesticide, it completely falls apart. It completely falls apart. You can't look at herb and say that it was sprayed in week 7 with Maltotox. You can't look at herb and say it was sprayed in week 7 with Forbid 4F or any of these things. You can't do it. I'm sorry. You can't do it. And if you tell me that you think that you can, you just showed me a liar, okay? Because you can't do it. And we don't know what the effects are of having, of consuming and smoking these products that are like laden with pesticides. And I guarantee you that there are pesticide failures in the Canadian dispensaries. That I know there are, because I've seen the grows that are feeding some of these dispensaries, and man, it's like you wouldn't believe the shit that goes on. So that's why I think that that was the real reason that I didn't buy Kirk's argument. It was fine when you start talking about mold, and of course, no one's going to take anything with a filamentous fungus growing over it, or you can see that it's got botrytis cinerea. You can identify those things by eye, but you can't identify a lot of things. So
remember when they first started testing 10 years ago in California, half of everything tested had pesticides, fungicides, or insecticides. Half.
It was more than that, honestly.
Yeah, and
okay, you're agreeing with me.
Even at this year at the Emerald Cup, it was an unacceptable amount, right? Whether it was half or 20% or whatever it was unacceptable.
And that was Northern California, and Southern California Chalice just did the same thing a month ago and just caught a whole bunch of things in all different, all across the board, from the rosins to the hash to the flowers, so it shows that it's not just flowers.
Yeah, well, and even in these markets like, where was it? It was Oregon. That they had that bug spray, whatever it was, that got pulled because it had ivermectin in it, right? Even when people think they're doing the right thing, like there's still fucking people feeding these products into the market.
Right, and aren't they suing that company right now for putting that in the product without notifying them as well?
Yes.
So it's showing accountability across the board that now, due to testing, that we can hold some of these chemical companies that have been just putting whatever mixes out there, not necessarily properly labeling them, and holding them accountable too. Because they haven't been honest as well. So not only have the growers been dishonest, the chemical companies have been dishonest on top of it.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Even in the case where the grower doesn't know he's using something that he's told is organic, and he doesn't have it analyzed in a lab, and then it turns out that it's poison. But it's not only, it's not only pesticides. On Vancouver Island, there's huge parts of the island that the groundwater is contaminated with arsenic at pretty decent levels. So if you're not filtering that out with a special filter, and then you're watering your garden with it, that stuff's going to get taken up by the plant.
There is no special filter for arsenic.
Wow, that's deep.
Yeah, there are. There's filters for arsenic. They make special water filters for arsenic.
That can take it down to sub-ppm levels?
Well, it takes it down to within whatever the amount that you're allowed to. I was looking at a property that had an arsenic well, and I looked all into it, and it's expensive, but you can do it.
I got a filter that takes out like chloramine and all that kind of stuff. I wonder if it does the arsenic. It's like an expensive filter.
Barley.
This is like a $6,000 system, so I mean, but
it's not that much. I don't have it.
Yeah, but the point is that there's a lot of cases where even growers, where they're acting as consciously as they can, there still might be missing things, right? So, growers, if you're out there and you're going to buy a property, get a fucking water test. Take a jar with you to the property when you go, and take a sample out of the tap and send it to the lab. You're going to drop a couple of $100,000 on a piece of property. It's a good idea to spend $200 on a water test.
There's soil and water.
Yeah, solid advice.
Absolutely, that's just.
So anyway, I was kind of disappointed about that whole lab test thing, because it actually could have been really cool. They could have released the lab reports, right? They could have given all that information to the public, and instead they didn't, and they kind of just said, take our word, these 3 failed, these 6 didn't. And
And it was hard to take their word when one of the ones that failed, Cannabis Culture, had a different dispensary's address under the name Cannabis Culture.
Oh, I didn't even notice that.
They noticed right away. They were like, wait a minute, was it us or was it this place? Because our address isn't that address.
Yeah.
That's a totally different dispensary. So they were kind of like, this is sketchy.
Well, fuck, it's sketchy that they're selling herb that hasn't been lab tested. I mean, come on. Those guys should be doing it better than anybody else, man. I'm sorry, for the amount of fucking shit that they talk, they should be doing it better than everybody else, and they're not. So
who's doing it the best?
They're Victoria, and they're doing a pretty good job over there right now, to be honest.
Yeah, I mean, shit, I hate to say it, but it's like, who's doing the best? Who's doing the most complete, comprehensive
Yeah.
testing? It's the LPs. It's the LPs.
Because they're forced to.
Yeah.
It's like who pays the most taxes? The people who they threaten jail with.
But all these dispensaries, really, someone made a mention in chat here earlier that you can go and rent like a GC for $200 a month. I know Green Cross
you
has
can't
one.
just rent a GC. Listen, it's like.
But then they gotta get someone to run it. Exactly. I'm gonna just get back on that.
Yeah,
then they gotta to run these machines, and in reality, I mean, it's a step they should be taking with these new dispensaries in Vancouver. They're getting licensed by the city. They should have some kind of a system set in place so then the patients know what they're getting, what's going on.
It's an embarrassment that Vancouver and Victoria and all these places that are trying to regulate dispensaries haven't solved this problem in their little regulations. It's a fucking embarrassment is what it is.
The big problem with GCs is then cleaning them. I mean, it's testing them's the easy part, and then cleaning the cannabis and all that residue and everything out of them in the downtime seems to be more of the issue with GCs.
They're
a headache.
I feel where Chimera's coming from, because, and I've said it a bunch of times, that prohibition profit is out the door. It's karmic debt. It's not the ideal profit margin that people had been making off of cannabis for so many years. And now the new profit margin is, clean, access, and like inexpensive. Those would be the three. So to me, clean would be 100%. You know what you're getting when you get that product. You know that it has no more residual pesticides, or if it's ever been sprayed with it. I want to know all of that information about something that I inhale into my lungs. I like to eat organic food, and that shit just goes into my stomach. But I'm inhaling this after vaporizing it into my lungs, and I don't think people are thinking how bad it is to take pesticides and vaporize them and inhale them into your lungs.
Man, in all the fucking no home grow states and no home grow districts around the world, you never know. You never know if somebody snuck in and fucking sprayed the field or in the greenhouse or whatever because they saw mites. At least in the Canadian system, with the insane security that's all monitored, they can't be running around their facilities spraying stuff.
Well, that's the problem. The low integrity person who would sell a crop that had molds or bugs or worse, it's like, okay, you got bugs, but now you're going to spray some Avid or some harsh shit all over the buds and then sell it to like the Compassion Club so they can sell it to the, that's just like, no.
Yeah, no, it's not cool. And so, I go both ways on it. It's like, I was talking with a broker guy online a couple of weeks ago or last week or whatever it was, and he was going on about how I can't wait till the weed goes down to $900 a pound again. And I think that's one thing if you're producing like hundreds and hundreds of pounds under the sun, but if you're growing under or indoors, that's not really realistic to be thinking that prices are going to come down that low. And then all these extra costs that are born, like say you have a 5-pound lot of herb that a dispensary is going to buy, you have to do testing on that 5-pound lot, right? So you need you don't need terps, but you should have definitely cannabinoids, and you should have microbials, and you should have heavy metals.
I think the whole market as we know it is changing. I mean, there's no way about it. The profit margins are dropping, the cost of production is going to go up, and there's going to be competition from people growing massive, massive amounts of cannabis because that's the reality of legality.
You know what I'd like to do, if it's possible, I met him once. I'd like to get the guy that does the Green Clean certification on, if we could have him on Church one day. Because he actually provides a really good service. They go out to grower sites, and they do a site audit. And actually, ASA is also doing these now, the Americans for Safe Access. They're doing site audits for laboratories and production facilities and dispensaries. And I think that would be, you don't have to test for heavy metals every time, but if a dispensary is going to take on a grower, they should go out to their grow and take water samples. They should have a look at their curing room. They should look at their processing area.
100%. That's exactly what should be happening.
Yeah, but they don't, right?
100% they don't.
Yeah.
None of them. I think.
No, but in the States they do. Like in California, you can get Clean Green certified. I don't know, Etienne, do you work with Clean Green certified growers?
All the time.
And
we have
Do you pay them more for their product?
Usually.
Usually?
Yeah.
So, I mean, to me, that sounds fair. You know, if they're going to go through the added expense of being audited and putting up or shutting up, you know, these guys are putting up. They're putting they're inviting people, a third party, into their facility to be audited. If you're going to go through all those steps to show that you're doing it the right way, you don't have pesticides hanging around your grow. You know, you have a separate processing area with stainless steel tables and areas that are wiped down and kept clean. This is not too much to ask, you know.
Right. Well, we were one of the first ones audited by ASA. So, I mean, it's one of those things you have to keep is we have to support those systems that are out there. If we're going to self-regulate, then we have to self-support each other as well. You can't just say, I'm gonna, you know, and thanks to science, they're proving. So it's no longer have to take it off of face value, off of a buddy's handshake. The science says it's clean, and they have clean medicine, and it's consistently that way. So I will pay you consistently that way. End of story. Now, will the new distributors do that the same way? I would anticipate so, but again, that system that we know currently in a few years will no longer be there.
Yeah,
I won't be able to see. I wanted to be able to do that. I wanted to be able to go visit my farmers' gardens and go through there. But now with the new distributor system, that distributor will be able to do that. I won't be able to have that access. See what I'm saying? So I would like to have that access. I would like to see what's in those gardens. I would like to look around in their rooms and see what's on the shelves from, you know, nutrients on down, etc., to see what's actually being used in those gardens. And I'm afraid that won't be the case. I have to rely on the distributor to do that, and I have to rely on the distributor's honesty and integrity to necessarily do that, as opposed to my own, which is pretty scrupulous.
No, you just can't buy it directly, but you can still go look at it.
Yeah, I was going to say that too. You can still request tours, and the thing is when we
the good growers will
environment, you'll be able to. Right now, it's not that comfortable for producers to bring people in they don't know when the operation is not completely legitimate. I mean, when all you can do is present a defense to your actions, it doesn't make you feel that confident in bringing people in to certify your actions. You know. Yeah. Becomes fodder for a prosecutor. I don't know for not forget this. You know, and that is something we all got to realize. I mean, we are not existing in a legal environment, and you can have these. You bring up such great points, and I admire them. But as someone who's grown weeds since the '80s, you know, hey, yeah, right. I'm listening to this. Go bring in some guy I don't know who can turn me in at will if he gets compromised. That sucks. You know, and I mean, the whole thing, it just sucks in that sense. And until we have a situation where you don't have to worry about showing off your garden or showing off your production facility, you're not going to get compliance, man. You're not going to get people wanting to comply.
And that's what we've seen, is that very few are actually going that route. Those that want to do it right and go that route will, but the majority are not that way. That's that's reality.
The dispensaries that we were consulting for, if growers wouldn't allow us to come do site inspections, then they were no longer vendors.
Yeah, well, you know what, though, the guys like that, and from the producer side of it, you go fly a kite, too. I don't know where you live and sleep and shit, and the reality is it's kind of rude to come at me and be like, oh, we don't trust you, but we've got to trust you, and this has been the problem of this illegal market. I've been turned in by pot club operators. It was printed in the LA Times. They got 12 months probation for running a pot club for 6 years, while I spent 5 years in prison for growing weed for 6 months, because that's the American justice system.
Yeah,
you know?
But I don't know if it's not trust. But
I get both sides of it, but we're not going to have what you're talking about until we're in a legal environment. Until you as a Canadian can drop off a sample at your lab legally to protect your rights, you're in a similar situation of having to figure out how to change the law without breaking the law. And here we are in California having the same problems. You know, until we really get rights, we're not dealing with shit. We're dealing with prosecutors, cops, and cases, and lawyers, and mud. That's what we're really dealing with. Shit.
Yeah.
And you know, and I love everything you're saying. Don't get me wrong. When I go shopping, I don't want to buy moldy food. I don't want to get mold in the bread I buy when I'm at the supermarket. I want these things to have been handled for me. You know, so I don't see why pot should be different. You know, I realize as you're talking that as a pot grower, the pot that I grow in my backyard might not be worth much anymore. Because
you know what?
That's reality.
Yeah, but maybe you're not trying to make a living off of it, you know?
No, I don't mean it like that. I mean it not. Look, I make movies, I make books, I make a life doing a lot of other things. You know, I've been busted so many times, I've been forced to, but that's not the point. The point is that if I grew an ounce of pot in my backyard, that shit was worth more than an ounce of gold for over 25 years of my experience growing pot. And that seemed a little odd to me, because how long did it take Mother Nature to grow an ounce of gold? Millions of years. It took me 90 days and I had an ounce of pot. Seemed a little weird. So I think that these days are changing, and that's what I mean. The ounce of pot that I grow in my backyard will no longer be worth very much. Prohibition's gone. The threat's gone. There's 6 plants in every yard or more if it's medical. I think this is going to just squash the price.
Yeah, it might not be worth what it was financially, but I think that it will be worth more knowing what you did to the medicine, right? That's the guarantee in growing your own, is that it wasn't sprayed with Avid at week 6, right? It didn't get loaded down with Maltitox or Eagle 20 or whatever these things are, myclobutanol, right? I think that's the peace of mind that comes in, and that's why I think home grow always has to be allowed.
Agreed, 100%. It's a nice option. It's not going to cover everyone, but it's going to cover those that want and have the ability to do it.
I agree. It's the one that, you know what, when I was considering supporting or not supporting the Adult Use of Marijuana Act, the 6 plants in every household, non-medical, was what made me say, most definitely. One of the, I feel that we're gonna break the law and grow the cannabis even if they don't allow us to. That's been our model of existence, and I applaud every one of us that have done it. I mean, we've been the heroes. We've been the people that were brave enough to bring cannabis and keep cannabis in the world. If it wasn't for us, where would cannabis be? We would have all complied with prohibition and it had been gone. So we got to still keep that attitude up. We got to still have our civil disobedience, our silently growing our flowers and breaking the law until the laws are correct.
Well, all we're doing
Don't you think?
Absolutely. It never ceases to amaze me how stupid it sounds when you say we have to grow our flowers in secret. Like, give me a break.
Bro, I mean, I've been an endangered florist for a long time. I mean, come on, man.
Well, I mean, in open carry states, you can strap an AR-15 to your side, and walk down the road, but you can't have some pot flowers.
It's the perception of freedom in America, man. We talk about America being so free, but you can't grow hemp in your front yard. Cops will show up, take you down quicker than shit. And it's flowers. I mean, this is the part that bothers me. I've gone to prison over and over again for flowers, growing flowers, nothing more.
Yeah.
It's so whack. But hey, I want to see things change. I want to see cannabis in the hands of more people, and when they get it, I would like it to be pesticide and mold free. I would like it to be top quality. I would like it to be as low as a price as possible so they can consume as much of it as they want and make their life a whole lot better. I feel blessed to have been given cannabis like I have. I've had cannabis. I never run out of cannabis. I love cannabis. It's great, and I wish everybody on the planet had access to cannabis like I have. I really think their life would be better, more balanced. They would be happier, more productive people.
Yeah. It's definitely a big difference living in a market where you can either grow or have access versus one where you're calling your dealer or someone's dry or you're trying to find. It's just,
Listen, I couldn't even imagine it. I hanging out at this, going dirt bike riding the other day in the parking lot, and I had my little baby cakes and my torch, and I was doing some dabs, and actually it was kind of a bummer because it was like it's the downside of the regulated world, and I'm sure there's good reasons for it, just like we're talking about the good reasons. But for the dirt biking, I hadn't been for a while, and these conservation officers came out of nowhere. All my friends were kind of tripping because I had my bong out, and I was like, dude, they're not here for the bong, plus I'm allowed to have the bong, so chill out on the bong. I still saw people like, oh, could you hide that or something? Like, I don't want them to see it. And I'm just like, oh, I'm not going to hide it at all. In fact, I'm going to take another dab.
Right now.
But he was there telling me that I couldn't take my dirt bike into the forest because it needed to be specially registered with this certain deductible on it. And It was just kind of like the worst conversation I've ever had. It was like if you went to the lake and then this guy just like jumped out of the woods as you were about to jump in the lake and said, hey, do you have your permit here? You know, this lake is actually going to be closing soon. And if you don't have your permit,
can I just flip this on you, my friend who makes children? You know, for your kids to find that forest as nicely as we are finding that forest, we might need those guys jumping out from behind the bushes saying, hold up, wait a minute, let me check your little devices here. Because nature's getting torn the fuck up by people that don't care.
These are dirt bike trails, Todd, that I'm talking about. These
I know. I saw your video. Made me wish I was...
They've been there for like 30 or 40 years. It's part of...
I'm not saying, but think a couple hundred years if we can make it that far. We do have to start thinking about... You know, take care of the shit.
Well,
you know what I mean?
Well, it's true, man. I mean, shit, listen.
It wasn't even about taking care of shit. It was about having the bike registered with the government and having a number on my bike. It had nothing to do with me tearing off the trail and shredding the mountain up, which...
Dumb question, though. Don't they already have you guys registering those things if they're on-road, off-road?
I was just told that I have
they
to
already
register
did
my
that.
Argo.
I was registered, and it all worked out. I realized afterwards when I left, packed my bike back up, and drove to the insurance company, she was like, if you've ever insured this bike, you're registered. And I was like, damn, I wish I would have known that. Cause so I just reinsured the bike. Now it's an on-off-road bike. I can go anywhere. It's insured. And I'm very respectful to nature, but 35 years on a dirt bike, I don't think I'll ever stop riding dirt bikes. I absolutely love accessing epic fucking nature.
Have you seen the Zero bikes, the electric dirt bikes yet?
Yeah, absolutely.
I so want one.
So, Bubbleman, tell us about, I thought Whistler had a pretty strict no marijuana policy on their properties.
You know, I've never seen it personally. I mean, for instance, I just left behind, a good $3,000 worth of terpenes in the fridge at the Westin Hotel when I left. Totally spaced them, you know, grabbing everything else. I forgot the terps. And I called them back, and they were like, we threw those out. And I was like, what do you mean you threw those out? Like, go get them out of the garbage. So the guy, like, climbed in the bin and found them and got them all out. And then I had, like, a long conversation with them. I said, you know, first of all, the guy told me that he threw those out because he saw the word cannabis on the label. Now, you have to understand, there's at least 40 or 50 or 60,000 Canadians who are using cannabis legally on a federal level. So maybe if one of your clients leaves behind some of their medicine, like I'm sure you would if they had left behind a fancy cigar or their watch, put it aside for them. Give them a call. You have their contact information. I ended up getting them all back. I've never had a problem in Whistler puffing or using my medicine anywhere, but at the same time, you know, Whistler is one of those places where the federal police that operate out of Whistler are the RCMP, and they keep them on a quick, like, I think 2 years is the maximum that they're allowed to be there for, which keeps them from making friends, which keeps them from getting friendly, and they keep this fresh group coming that comes from, like, Alberta and Saskatchewan and Manitoba, and they're just, it's not the super safest place to burn herb if you're not covered, you know, by license. You could find yourself getting arrested.
Well, not only that, they also came out and said that they're they're banning all marijuana use from the facility, from all their facilities, right? Whether it's medical or not. So, which I don't know if that's constitutional to do that, but
right, yeah, who knows? Probably for them it is because they wrote up their shit. I think they might even be like, when you go to Whistler, a lot of it might be for sure on the mountain, because when you buy the ticket, you're basically signing a waiver that gives them, you know, covers their ass in every shape and form possible known to man.
Yeah, and that's the thing is they said even season pass holders, if they catch you, they'll take your license or your season's pass or whatever.
Yeah, well, I would love to see that not happen, and for Whistler to embrace. You know, it's kind of why I like the idea of promoting the sports aspect. These young dudes that are like slaying the game of snowboarding and skiing and sledding, and a ton of them are cannabis users. A ton of them use cannabis even while they ride, before and after they ride.
Yeah.
And I wish they could stand up and say that without feeling like that would be a negative. You know, of course, they're worried about sponsors. They're worried about losing monetary gain for their abilities that may only be able to pay them off for a short period of time in their life in the first place. But what a great opportunity if you love the herb. It's sort of folks like that can change the perspective of people when they're like, so wait a minute, that kid like smokes a joint before he does a double backflip off an 80-foot cliff? That is insane.
Yeah.
It's happening. It's
Well,
not.
we all know, we all know that Ross Bagliati, he was just a victim of secondhand smoke.
Yeah, from the gondola. That's what he said. That was awesome. I was like, that's pretty good. You know, it was so early, but I have to say, I would have loved. I talked to Ross recently, and he said he would come on Hash Church and talk about the whole thing and whatnot. And it was a difficult time for him. I'm sure Japan is like the one other place other than the U.S. that John Conroy warned me not to go with a cannabis felony. He was like, don't go to Japan, don't go to America. You should be good pretty much like anywhere else in the world. And that's where he got caught with the smallest amount. So he definitely said it was a pretty intense vibe. I'm sure he was pretty tripped out. It would have been an amazing opportunity to...
What do you mean he got caught? Like he got caught with flowers? I thought he just got caught with it in his blood.
Yeah, they still took that shit very serious, dude. Like, very serious. It wasn't just about losing the medal. It was about potentially being arrested by Japanese authorities and being charged.
Huh. I knew Singapore was like that. I didn't know that Japan was so anti-cannabis that way, too.
Yeah, that's what Conroy told me, like, back in the late 90s, early 2000s. He was just like, basically, Japan and America will have the biggest problems with you showing up at their border with this on your record.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, shit, well, I guess Japan and America are off limits for now. Maybe I'll be able to get a waiver for Japan one day, but just let's first go for America. I want to come down to America, and I want to see Cuban, and I want to go see Todd and Etienne, go see Tony, and go see my friends in Denver. I could spend like 3 years traveling the U.S. just to go see the friends in the different states. It would be the ultimate bubble tour, I'll tell you that much.
It's a nice country. Driving around in is beautiful.
Some of my best friends are from America, dude. Like,
oh, you will love this. You will love California. You would love the Southwest.
I've gotten as far as Oregon.
Beautiful.
I got as far as like down towards the bottom of Oregon.
Oh man, California is just fucking beautiful. It's got everything. It literally has every climate. I mean, the States does too. The States as a country is so vast in its natural beauty. It's really an incredible land.
Yeah, California geographically is absolutely breathtaking. To drive down the coast, across all those little bridges, it's epic. There's a waterfall that goes into the ocean. It's I think one of the few on the whole west coast of North America. Beautiful.
Drops right into the ocean?
Yes, it does. Yeah.
We have a pretty good one up the road here, Shannon Falls, that I've shown with my drone a few times, and D420K and I went and hung out under it. But it obviously ends up in the ocean, but it has to go below the road, and it doesn't fall into the ocean. That would be pretty awesome.
Yeah, the one is pretty beautiful, man. Big Sur is getting hit in the Los Padres Park right now, huh? They have a big fire down there.
Ooh. No good. 'Tis the time, though, isn't it, for water droughts and fires. BC's goes through it every single year, just like California.
Yep.
Yeah, the epic rain this year, epic grass means epic fires, unfortunately.
Yep. Yep, burns it all out and then grows. I don't know if you guys get that fireweed up there or down there, I should say, but it's like this beautiful pink flower that grows after the area's been burned out. Like a side of a mountain gets burned, and then this crazy, I guess the seeds are just there all the time, but that fire actually helps pop these seeds, and they grow into these beautiful pink, sort of reddish flowers. Pretty cool. I was up in the mountains up in the Yalakum Valley and Tyotin area north of Lillooet and Whistler, and after some big fires, and you just can't believe how nature's like, oh right, so you burnt everything and made it look swaggy, we'll just fix that.
Yeah, here there's a lot of pines, and the pines drop their seeds in the fires, so there's a lot of new sproutings after fires.
Ironically, the place I just mentioned is called Julia Pfeiffer Burns State Park, and I put a link to it in our chat thing. But unfortunately, it has a fire. That's exactly what you just said, Chimera. That's fires right at that park that I mentioned.
Yeah,
But it's beautiful waterfall goes right in, probably like a 40, 50-foot drop into the ocean.
Yeah, and it goes right up to Carmel by the sea, right? So Carmel on Sea or whatever it is, just south of Carmel. So
about 30 miles south, I think, of Carmel.
That's a pretty big stretch. It's a beautiful stretch of highway.
Yeah, that Route 1 is like a 5-hour drive between San Simeon and Monterey Bay. It's just, every chance I get, I take it. It's like zen.
What's
so
that?
Nice.
It's got that castle down there too, doesn't it? The
San Simeon? First Castle?
Yeah.
The First Castle. It's called. His property was San Simeon. Yep, that's where. It's epic. The property is incredible.
Yeah, I highly recommend doing that tour if you ever get a chance to. The pool is the most amazing pool pretty much you've ever seen, and because the marble's from every place around the world. And then if you get a chance to go view the house, I highly recommend it. It's smaller than you think. It looks so epic, but when you're inside of it, it's a lot smaller than you think. But everywhere is, if you know anything about stonework, holy shit.
Yeah, every detail, every fucking detail.
Never seen anything like it from the pool to the inside. It was, the man had a good eye for quality.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
I truly can't wait until cannabis is part of the cultural scene like wine is in California, where everywhere you go they serve it. They're proud of it. They're proud of where it was grown.
Promote it. I'm in the same boat with you, dude.
Oh, we just freshly harvested this tangy. You should really try it. It's wonderful. It's just cured over blah 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 blah. Oh,
you go to the hotel, and as you're signing up, it's like always getting the suite. Bring out the dab tray. The girl comes out with the little silver tray. Because this happened to me in Switzerland. They waited for me to tell them what room I was going to get, and when I finally said the suite, out of nowhere, this girl comes with the tray, and she's got the little chocolates, she's got the champagne, the mimosas, the orange juice, all in little champagne glasses. And I was just like, see, this should be the dab tray right there. That's like edible chocolates. Would you like a dab of our finest Swiss cultivars, sir? Yes, I absolutely would. Thank you.
Our finest Swiss rope-a-dope.
Hey, I made great hash in Switzerland, I'm not going to lie. Like, it took me a while, and Chimera is right in the sense that 90%, it's like that everywhere I go. 90% of everything is swag, and it's like, try finding the 10%, it's hard. Try finding the 1%, it's really hard. It can take a while, and it's often why I would be upset when I heard people say, oh, I went to California and they had shitty bud, or I went to Vancouver and they had shitty bud, or I went to Amsterdam and they had... It's like, no, listen, this is what you mean to say. I went to California and could only find shitty bud. That's on you, bro, not on California.
Word.
Word. Or Vancouver or Amsterdam or Jamaica. I hear about Jamaica all the time, and then in the meantime, Sam, can you not attest that that bubble hash we made was absolutely beautiful hash?
It was totally, totally stretchy, sort of like a reddish brown, toffee colored that the sun could shine right through. I mean, it was absolutely great.
Yeah, it was beautiful.
Weed was not spectacular, but we just cranked through a bunch of weed and made a bunch of really great water hash.
Fucking A, we did. It was top quality. And when people say, oh, you can't find the good resin, it's like, well, I'm telling you, you can, you will, and you should. You owe it to yourself. Come on.
You guys must have been just dropping Rastas left, right, and center with that stuff.
How great would it be, though, if you could walk into any store and anywhere in California and pick up dry sift or really good quality nugs?
And multiple varieties has always been my dream. The dream is this, Todd. We know we've arrived when we can get the, you know, the narrow leaf drug cultivars, the ones that take long periods of time to flower, the ones that fewer people seem to have, and be able to get those in 99% resin and full melt bubble and all the extracts that you want, the same cultivar and just pick like, oh, I'm going to get some Neville's Haze. I want to get a little of that Skunk #1. I definitely want to get some Tangy. And just have so much of it that we're trading with each other. It's like, oh, dude, here, let me give you a jar. Like a jar, not like a half a gram or a gram, but it's like, here, take 10 grams, dude. Really get to know this resin. It's delicious. That's the dream.
I like your dream. Let's make it a reality.
Well, I think we've been working as hard as we possibly could. We've definitely got, like, there's a lot of people doing this all over the world. We are a small little group of core people here on Hash Church. We recognize all the work that all you guys have done out there. And, you know, if you're feeling that you've done some good work in the cannabis industry or you've done good things for cannabis, whether it's bred a beautiful strain or created a little tweak to your extraction method, we definitely want to do on Hash Church. Go ahead, Dee.
Bong rip, mother lovers!
That's right. Fuck, I thought you were boycotting us, man. Haven't seen you for 2 hours.
No. I've been hashing for days.
Tell us about it. Let's talk hash.
Well, I've been hashing for days. This morning was early start. I went and got my buddy up. My other bro just showed up. He's going to be doing some rosining and helping.
Show us. Show us.
Beautiful.
Show us.
I'm just puffing some of your sift.
Here's some of the hash we made. Oh, nice.
Yeah, thank you.
You're welcome, brother. Of course.
Made on the weekend.
Man, I had Johnny and Phil up last weekend. Johnny B, how you doing, brother? Man, what a good time.
Dude, good to see you, man.
It was a good time. We made a bunch of hash, and like the hashes that were made. Wow. I got some really nice purple venom, like a really nice bag of bud that I'm making today into the bubble hash.
Beautiful.
You see, oh yeah, full melt, all of it. It's just unbelievable. Like, and the thing I love about this too is the color separation. When you're really fucking doing it, like, look how light that is compared to the last one.
Yep.
Like, and the smells. You know, one's literally, this is the same bud. There's that, and then there's this. Like, blonde and red and brown, and I fucking love hash. And I was listening to the conversation you were having with you know, here's 10 grams. Get to know this resin. Really get to know it. That is fucking on point. I'd love to be able to do that. Have people come up and, you know, it's been recently that guys, you know, a friend of mine come up that I met in the industry recently at one of the Lift conferences or, you know, one of the places we had, the last conference in Vancouver. And he was riding up through this way from THC in Kelowna, I guess there. You know, coming through, and then we're getting together, having a barbecue. I'm down in Vancouver. People in the industry are getting together. We're having little dinners and little meals and sessions and stuff like that. And I think we should do a lot more of that. And you can't get in the States yet, Mark? You didn't get your pardon? Is that what I get the gist of?
Oh, I'm still working on it. It's not that I didn't get it. I just...
Okay, cool. I just caught the tail end of your conversation there about going to the States and everything, right?
Yeah, you know, I got a lot of friends down there that I need to go and see for a long time now. So it's I want to go on a little bubble hash tour, go bump into a bunch of key people, make some hash, and just do some filming and see this beautiful countryside. It's how they started talking about. I mean, I have been to America a lot. I've been to the East Coast and down in the Bible Belt and way up north below where I lived, and I've been on the West Coast. I just haven't been for a long time, so I'm looking forward to getting back for sure.
I just want to show you this melt on this bubble. It's
Please.
like it foams. It's just fucking unreal, man.
Well, that's what happens when you can get everything out except just the heads, and that is the beauty of the water, unveiling a quality that you would otherwise not really know it was there visually. At least you could potentially know with your head by realizing how strong it is, but even when you isolate it out to that sort of cleanliness, it's just so fucking tasty and nice. I'm going to join you. I think we all should join you. In fact, anyone that doesn't put a bong to their lips right now, I'm kicking right out of the fucking room. Totally joking, by the way.
You always do that to me right in mid-rep. Fuck.
I'm gonna ask you, Darrin, which is the 120 and which is the blonde and which is the darker one? The 120 is the lighter one, right?
The 120 is the darker one.
Oh, okay. And so which one do you like the best? The 45?
Right now it's the 45.
There you go.
Right now I like the 45 the best out of all of them. Like, I can't wait to come down and we'll have a nice session. We should all get together.
Let's have one right now.
Okay.
Out of the 4 or 5 washes, which was the best wash? Do you figure out of the first, second, third, fourth, or fifth? What was the best wash out of that?
I'd say the third.
The third, nice. That's really good to know too, because we did do a lot of runs with that, and we just saw the difference with the first run, and we thought we were getting nothing from it. The second one came back amazing. That third one, you could see the color. I remember that totally. So that's
I'll tell you, if your second or third run is coming in cleaner and you're using the same material.
Same material, same water too.
Yeah. So what is going on is you want to pre-rinse your material before you wash it. So you can take the material and put it in a small bucket of water or a small tray of water, a nice big. I like to use those trays more than a bucket, and I'll just gently kind of knead it in this water mixture. And what happens is it'll release like contaminants, like chunks of dust and dirt and stuff that might end up in the plant matter. And you can turn it around and start getting your best to come out on your first. Because it's definitely a sign if it's coming out on your second or third, like the nicest color and the nicest, then A, you could be overstuffing the bags, because I don't even do a third wash. I'm like 90% everything is gotten by the end of the second wash, and even the second wash for me, usually I get another 10%. My first wash, I usually get 90% of my yield. So those are just two little things to look out for. That kneading, that pre-rinse is definitely helpful, especially for the outdoor guys who are about to be harvesting, or greenhouse where you get a lot more dirt and dust and debris in the air and the plant picks that up. You can wash that right off the resin without knocking the resin off. I wouldn't use cold water, because that cold water, and I wouldn't take the material and freeze it first either. You don't want to make the heads brittle. You just want to take the material and pre-rinse it and get some of that material off. You can take that water and filter it through like a 25 or a 40 micron bag, a 45 micron bag. I know a lot of people that do that, and they can, you still save it, all contaminated piece, but you can easily soak that in plant fats or coconut oil, whatever, and make a nice extraction and not have to lose any of that resin. You get pretty good at it though, and you won't lose much. Damn, I went on there for a second. Sorry about that.
Well, that's proper information sharing right there, buddy. That's and that's what I was told, is the little wash beforehand. Maybe a little too much material in the bags, but and then a nice little wash with lukewarm water, and then throw it in after it's done. It's freezing and stuff.
We had frozen materials, so we should be washing it as we crop it first, then freeze it before. Because I remember we had it frozen.
Fresh frozen. Yeah. But what I got lost there. I got lost. Long rip.
When you get lost, you can quickly get found.
I don't know where I was.
Talking about when you were washing, we were told about washing the one before, and you had it frozen before, and then Phil said that we should use warm water, and then I interrupted.
Warm water. I wouldn't use warm water.
Well, no. Okay.
It's very important to say that on Hash Church so that people going to hear that and go, oh yeah, let's use warm water. Do not hot water. Just use room temperature, or you know what I mean, but not cold, but definitely not warm, because you don't want to warm the resin up too much. It'll definitely could potentially cause you problems later on in your extraction process. Good for rosin, not so good for bubble hash.
So it would be a good water temperature then that we should be doing this at. It should be a good temperature that we should.
I do it at room temperature. I do it at room temperature, so the water's probably like, and I don't make water hash in super warm environments, except unless maybe I'm filming a video. I like to make water hash in a colder environment, so it would probably be below, 70 degrees, maybe.
So you don't add ice at all?
Not when I do my pre-rinse, no, because I don't want to knock heads off. I just want to gently remove like little bits of particulate that have caught themselves up in the bud. You see it in outdoor you wouldn't believe in some outdoor, especially those little kind of like greenhouse things that are real small and people grow the plants right to the edge. And then, you know, they go in and they move around, and it's, if they're not in pots and they're walking on dirt and it's up in the air and it's dusty, that shit all ends up settling on the plants. It's easy.
Mark, have you ever put water hash that you've extracted into boiling water?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, we boiled it for sure.
It makes a lava lamp where the resin will cool off, drop, and then get hot down at the bottom and rise up again. It's
I didn't do that. You put it in a glass bottle so you could see it doing that?
Yes, I did.
Very cool. No,
Well, I have photos of that. What you just described, and I was tripping on why it was doing that, and it was a heat thing. I have really cool photos. I'll share with you, Sam. But
it absolutely fucks up the hash pretty much. But it's really cool for mindless fun.
It was really fun. Yeah, we were kind of just playing, honestly, and taking cool photos. I was with Mel, Frank, and Kenny. That is really cool what was happening. Yeah, it did look like a lava lamp. It was beautiful. I was taking micro shots of it actually against the glass, and then it would just, you know, fall back down and come back up. It was really cool. Yeah. Hey, was red Lebanese hash red because of contamination from the ground around it?
I think it was from dirt, but
yeah, it's from the soil.
I don't know 100%.
I was
soil. That's right. That's
yeah, it's the red Lebanese soil because when I got one slot of the red and I got 2 slots of blonde.
Well, look at the hash we made in Jamaica. That came from Orange Hill, which is very bauxite rich. It's very like orange soil, reddish soil, and that hash was extremely red. I remember leaving a little bit of it to dry out in the sun and going out to get it and seeing it bubbling in the Jamaican sun. I was like, holy shit. That's
because it was bubble hash.
I guess so.
Yeah, you had some epic pics from that. I just remember you guys posting pics looking over the water.
Oh, I know, dude. Even before I could take a good pic, I got epic pics of that hash in the patty, and then I stretched it out and held it on my finger. Oh man, never forget that hash. Never. It's why I'm so excited about Jamaica, because I know they have the ability to grow some of the most beautiful resin with that soil and that combo of sun. They definitely got some. They got a good advantage when it comes to cannabis. I'm not gonna lie. Well, we've been at it for a couple of hours here. We got 806 people watching. Chat's going off pretty good.
Ooh, we should ask everybody what they're smoking right now.
So I'm going to probably cut this short, guys. He's just kind of sitting right here. There's Dad. Say hello, everybody. Howdy.
What's up, Dad?
My daddy's just moved. He sold his house and stuff like that, so we're going to go for a drive and say goodbye to the house and stuff. And he showed up a little early, which is awesome, so I'm going to say goodbye, everybody. And as always, Puff and Pass, thanks for all the information, and peace.
Have a great day, John and John's dad. Those guys will be having a good time, I'm sure. Johnny's a lucky guy to have his old man around to be able to hang out with him like that. I definitely envy him for that. I would love to be able to hang out with my old man.
It's amazing how nice John's health has turned around.
Just look how happy he is and how relaxed his face and his whole body structure is. It's like night and day.
Yeah, when you're going through pain all the time, man, you can really see it on someone's face. It takes a lot out of you.
Man, it takes everything out of you. It's like it's a non-stop, never-ending. It's always just there. It's great to see that. I would have never guessed that operation would have healed him up like that. It was pretty amazing when Darrin and I went and saw him in the hospital there. He was just like, I kind of was nervous. I was like, dude, don't jump out of bed, please. Like, you've just had neck surgery. You got a big brace on. He's like, no, I feel great. I was like, holy shit, dude, stop doing that. Making me nervous. So, yeah. Good old Johnny B.
Well, he didn't give anybody the finger today, so we're lucky.
Johnny would never even give anybody the finger. It was just funny that no one would have ever given the finger in Hash Church. That's the funny thing. Like when he said, I was like, I just let it go. But yeah. All right. Yes. Shout out to Matt the Great Gardener, Coolio Jamba 720.
So Todd posted an article to us in our chat here about the tantalizing clues that suggest cannabis played a key role in the birth of civilization itself, and how the Silk Road may have gotten a lot more interesting than history class made us believe.
Right.
And we know that from, of course, Rob's history, but of course it goes back to talk about, domestication of horses and the Yamanaya people.
Yeah, and solid gold bongs. Don't forget solid gold bongs.
Yeah, solid gold bongs or drinking vessels, regardless. Pretty incredible stuff that shows because as Rob said, as the hash trail went, so did the silk trail, because one relied on the other. So it doesn't surprise me that it seems to be one of the earlier traded commodities amongst different cultures. Hey, check out this weed we discovered.
Right. Yeah.
No, dude, check out this weed we've got. Oh shit.
Oh man, back in that age, it's any plants, medicinal plants that you would find are super valuable.
Well, they always told us in history class that it was spices, and I always had this vision that if you ever travel to the UK, there's a lot of Indian restaurants, right?
Oh,
so and so I was like,
because
well, maybe
they
got their first taste of curry, and it made them make a road to Asia. But now, if you think about it, the spices, it wasn't spices, it was herb, it was ganja, right? That's what forced the road over the.
Right? A little hashish spice.
Right, as Todd has said, what was Columbus looking for?
Well, and what did the wise men bring Jesus, right? They said frankincense and myrrh. It was probably just some really heady resin.
That was the name for their cultivars. They had a buddy named Frank.
Dude, you gotta check this myrrh out. This myrrh came out perfect.
The myrrh was the myrrh scene.
Yeah, if they were really wise.
I unfortunately think that's funny, but I don't think it was when you think about my argument towards cannabis helping civilization evolve is the fact that the shirt I'm wearing is 100% hemp right now, as was everything prior to cotton. We only got a cotton gin in the 1790s, so everything prior to that was not these short fabrics, it was longer hemp, and hemp played a real pivotal role in sails, in ropes, the clothing, the paper we use. Paper was invented using hemp. It's really not the, get you high and inspired part that really helped us stay warm in the winter to the degree that blankets did, or sail across the Atlantic like canvas sails did, or ropes when we got there to moor us to the rocks that we found, or any of what we did. When we think about, even North America being settled, we think about canvas-covered wagons going west. Well, canvas is cannabis. So all of that canvas came from cannabis farming, either here in North America or in Europe. And that was, what was responsible for us being protected from the sun, and the ropes connected us to the horses that pulled our carts. Cannabis played a pivotal role, in my opinion, in the civilization, the evolution of civilization.
At least in America, because even in Jamestown, Virginia, it was against the law not to grow hemp. When I was working for Ecolution Hemp Company, we got reached out to by the Jamestown Society, and they showed up with their historians and their books of different types of ticking, as it's called, which is all the old bedding back in the day, which goes to the name Ticklenburg, Germany, and that's how it went. It was the hemp that was produced over there and then processed in the machines and then brought to America. And all the bedding, all the everything that they wore, as well as the things that they used for the horses. One of the main things the Jamestown, Virginia bought from us was the webbing, because they used the webbing to make all kinds of things that they used to utilize back in the day. And then they bought our hemp twine, and they used to sell it in the gift shop they could say, look, this is what we used to use as twine back in the day. So it was very book and reading about hemp to then in the span of 4 years then have experts that handle all types of hemp come reach out to us because they needed access to the hemp for the replication of their costumes, their what their horses wore, things around the dinner places, et cetera, et cetera. So it showed us the depth of the need, but they still needed more. They wanted hemp seed oil for their lamps. They wanted all kinds of things that were unaffordable and we couldn't necessarily provide. But if you realize back in the day the amount of hemp that was around being produced, it was commonplace.
Yeah, historically accurate. I mean, before we had whale oil, we had hemp seed oil burning in our lamps. I mean, the very common method of mixing lye and hemp seed oil, and it separates, and you can pour off the top, and it's instantly a fuel. First time I saw that happen, it blew me away. I mean, but
yeah,
Todd, I just wanted to mention that the cotton gin was 1790, not 1870.
I'm pretty positive I said 1790s, but it's cool.
Excuse
what I always say.
Recorded it.
You can go back and check on me, but it is 1790s. I mean, prior to that, we were not using cotton commonly.
Absolutely true. Cotton was an expensive fabric before that.
Yeah, it was extremely expensive. It took lots of slave labor, literally slave labor, to make it.
What you mentioned about the laws in Jamestown, we talk about in the Emperor, and actually 1619 in Jamestown, Virginia, they passed what we called sister laws in a sense, where they mandated that you had to grow at least 10% of your property with hemp, and also they made it legal to own another person. And that was the beginning of slavery in this fucking country. Which, if I was alive during slavery, I would probably be against that too, now that I think about it. They would have killed me quick.
Well, we were talking hemp and hemp breaking. There was a bit for a while there that if you worked hemp breaking, you could work yourself free from slavery in certain areas.
Yeah, I'm sure that was a bullshit contract brought to you by early Monsanto founders.
Chimera's posting an article on myrrh and opopanax.
Yeah, did you see who the author was? The lead author?
Lumiere, yeah, we just met that dude couple weeks ago.
Yeah, he's a good guy. But they did a full terpene breakdown of a whole bunch of their hydrodistillates.
Interesting. Hey, welcome there, Tony. Someone just said the best thing about Tony. They said, "I love when Tony comes in after just waking up. You know he's about to dab till he turns red." Oh yeah.
Well, I could tell you that I just woke up and I'm still high from hanging out with Richie last night.
That's right. I forgot about Richie being in town.
Yeah, that was like a 3 a.m. deal, and I'm pretty old, and I don't normally stay out that late. But yeah, like I had a lot of different herb, and we had a call in the hotel room. They called our room and they said, it's not a problem, but we just wanted to remind you that it is a non-smoking room. The funny thing is, we hadn't really been smoking yet. We haven't even smoked. We just had the herb out. We're just grinding up herb. We're just like rolling joints and like, who's smoking? How do they know that? How do they know we're smoking? And somebody's like, "Bumbleclot man, you're in Richie's room. It smells like weed outside. Of course they're gonna call you." I was like, we haven't even started yet.
Being in a hotel room with a Jamaican reggae band, it's just a given that there's going to be at least 14 joints smoked simultaneously. Not like they're passing joints around.
Oh no, everyone rolls their own, of course.
Of course.
Well, let me roll that one up, and it's like.
How was the show? Was it great?
The show was really good, man. It was good to see. It was good to finally see Richie live in the Element. He had a live band, and the drummer was really, really, really good. He had kind of like a little. He had like a good 30-minute jam intro before Richie came out, which I thought was pretty cool. It was like they kept kind of like each artist would kind of bring him up, and they're okay, he's gonna come on. But when his band was ready to go, and I thought he was like sitting next to me, I thought he was gonna go on stage. And then I was like, okay, well, they're just jamming. It was like a good 30-minute just jamming.
Till he decided to go up.
Yeah.
That's
It was like, all right, here comes Richie Spice. And it was like...
Well, you had seen Richie before, though.
Yeah, but we only saw him when it was kind of like they kind of made him run through his songs fast.
Yeah. But still, that was gnarly. Kingston, like, pretty epic.
Yeah, like, I would say there was a good, 25,000, 10,000? I don't know how many people were at that show. There was a lot of people.
There was a lot of jerk chicken stalls, so I was, you probably were accurate on that.
Yeah, there was at least 8 people with grills.
That's a good thing. Lots of jerk chicken is a good thing.
I don't even eat chicken, but...
I was about to say, unless you're vegetarian.
Do they do jerk anything for you down there that you can eat?
Sometimes they'll act like a jerk to me. No, I'm just joking. No, they don't. Yeah, fish. They do. You can jerk. Jerk is a sauce, so you can pretty much, jerk up any type of fish. You can probably.
I think I saw that. Yeah, they did fish. They did chicken. They did. What else did they?
I used to have jerk tofu.
Yep. You don't see it in Jamaica.
No.
No, jerk is a complex flavor, man. It's like 17 to 20 ingredients, depending on,
Yeah, it's rather umami.
Yeah, it's definitely popular. I mostly eat like the Ital Rasta food when I'm there. Rice and beans and some stew and maybe some veggie chunks and some other little things.
So last night, our buddy Preston from LA drove 7 hours for the show.
Preston's awesome.
Yeah, another guy, another friend of mine who's Ital X-Rex, he also is a sun-grown farmer. He drove 3 hours for the show. The Duchess came out.
Nice.
He joined our presence. Yeah. A couple familiar faces were out. Wanted to check it out.
Well, that's pretty cool that you guys were able to go and party it up with Richie and enjoy a nice show. It's been a while since he's come up here. He does Toronto a lot, but not very often.
Well, and then he has Anaheim, I guess, or no, he's in Ontario, California today. But the cool thing is they used the new camera. I got really good video. That camera with low lighting video is unbelievable. I mean, I told Richie, I was like, man, if Bubbleman was here at the same time, we actually could film your next video. We just had to focus on one of the songs, and we could get multiple angles, and then we could kind of match it to the CD very easily with the software that I use in Final Cut that matches different audio syncs.
Well, the next time we go to Jamaica, it would be fun to film a video for Richie's song Dabbins.
Yeah, exactly.
And I'll bring
That's what we're talking about. Oh yeah, you have a drone too now. I forgot.
Yeah, you gotta love the drone footage, man. Just a little bit here, a little bit there. I can picture Richie in the field singing with the drone, like lifting way up and getting the back shot.
Well, between those two, between the dueling cameras and a drone, we could definitely film a video. I'm convinced.
For those of you who aren't unaware of who we're speaking about, we are speaking about Richie Spice, who really is a cannabis activist in his own right, and he's used his music as a way to promote and share information about cannabis. He wrote a great song years ago now called Marijuana that was, they didn't even want to play it on the radio. Thankfully, Irene FM was sharing and playing it, but it was his way of sharing these songs. And if you listen to the lyrics, you'll see it pretty quick that that was Tony's mic that was doing the reverberation. Weird that he has headphones on and that it was still doing that. Good call there, Todd. So yeah, if you haven't checked out Richie Spice, check him out on YouTube. He's got some great songs. He's just a beyond pleasant man. Proponent of Rastafari and cannabis, the end of cannabis prohibition, a cannabis warrior, if you will. And so that is who we are talking about. Yes, a ganja ambassador. There you go. A ganja warrior, a ganja ambassador. So that is who Tony was talking about, Mr. Spice. Everyone needs a little spice in their life.
It's amazing to think the cultural significance Bob Marley had on bringing cannabis around the world.
Huge. Definitely when you talk to Richie, Bob Marley obviously was a huge inspiration to all of these guys, you know, as well as a host of other incredible artists from back in the day. It's pretty amazing, you know, I've traveled all over the world and never have I traveled anywhere that's like Jamaica in the sense of this group of people, this almost, well, religious sect that promotes the love and the freedom they want with cannabis through music that happens to ignite the rest of the world, the Western, the Eastern, all over the world this music has taken root. And it's just very neat that you don't see it come out of a ton of different cultures. It's very much a Jamaican sort of thing, that reggae music, that solid, like, I mean, Peter Tosh was singing about good for glaucoma. Doctors and lawyers use it in the 70s. He was singing about the medicinal benefits of cannabis. That's pretty fucking awesome, if you ask me. Like, let's give 2 thumbs up to Peter Tosh and all of the incredible artists that have chosen, you know, Joseph Culture Hill, Israel Vibrations, Burning Spear. I could go on and on and on and on forever. Sam, I'm sure you might want to give a shout out to at least 100 reggae bands that have touched you over the years. I'm sure there's more than a few.
Well, yeah, I mean, you named some of the really good ones. I personally liked you, Roy, a lot. The Gladiators and all kinds of, roots reggae people.
Yeah, Clinton Fearon, who was the bass player for the Gladiators, went off on his own, and you can look into his stuff with the Boogie Brown Band. Just so much wonderful toots and the Maytals, like Marlon Asher, Alpha Blondie, Jack Herrera. I like that. I like that. Straight up. Jack Herrera should have done a reggae album. He should have brought him to Jamaica and done the Jack Herrera.
Jack didn't sing, man.
No, but you know what? He could be like, trust me, you don't have to sing. Do I sing? I don't sing. And yet,
he could growl.
I'm on that rhythm.
What do you think, Todd? You think Jack would have been great in a metal band?
No,
in a metal band for sure, bro. Have you ever seen him when he was fully amped up, speaking to a crowd, yelling, spitting, screaming about our rights, getting our rights back? Dude, he was.
I still think that Jack
was a heavy metal band.
I still think Jack's voice, like a little clip, the same way Terrence McKenna's was used, could be implemented into a beautiful reggae dub song. That's all. For sure.
Yeah, I miss Jack. I wish we still had his energy now. I mean, he really riled up the masses and motivated us to get going. His book was incredible, and his technique was unique in the way that he really drew you in and made you feel like you were obligated to do something about what he just taught you.
Hey guys, bong rip, all you mother lovers out there. I'm gonna go and have breakfast with my brothers here. They just made a nice big feed for us, and then we're gonna be hashing all day. And I will put on Facebook Live video of us doing it and show you what I'm doing anyways a little later on, so you can have a look. Etienne, you're always on there. Thanks for showing up. Always a pleasure. And let's do a bong rip. Oh, and just before I forget again, I forgot what I remembered what I forgot talking about earlier. It was when I'm washing the buds of the hash, or washing the buds of the dope for the hash, I find that the third, like it just keeps coming every time. Like it just keeps producing more, and not more and more, but it just doesn't stop. So I've taken it up to like 7-8 rinses, and still had some product in there, and I've made some pretty nice rosin out of that. I'll show you that too. But anyways, bong rip, mother lovers.
And while he's bong ripping, I'm going to mention a few other reggae bands that I feel I have to mention, which is the young, up-and-coming, the Dexter Malawis, the Exile the Brave, the Hempress Sativa, of course Little Joe, who passed away, but inspired this group of Jah Over Evil, from Kabaka Pyramid to Chronix, to Gideon, to Salas, to Sila, and just all sorts of different names you might want to check out on YouTube if you really want to enjoy some beautiful reggae. Jesse Royal as well, John Nine, who was just here in Vancouver a couple of days ago. These are all really powerful reggae artists that have sort of come up in this, what they're calling a reggae revival. You know, it kind of turned into a dance hall vibe for a long time. There was some years where Vibes Cartel and that whole scene really ran the show, and it was what people were listening to. And now these young group of people popping up and really with the right vibes and the right foundation. If you listen to the lyrics, obviously Chronic's killing it lately, but also Kabaka Pyramid doing amazing things, and Jesse Royal, all, you know, ganja-fueled and ganja-spirited music that has beautiful pro-ganja lyrics with interwoven throughout the songs. So definitely something you might want to check it out if you haven't already. I will post a link of reggae songs on my Facebook page. I actually have a reggae playlist on this YouTube channel, and you can find that usually at the bottom of the front page of my YouTube channel. And I just, if I like a video, that it goes into that playlist. So I'll go in and make sure that I add all of those wonderful people. 'Cause shit. Yeah, I agree, Todd. Now I'm going to stop talking and mute myself, so hopefully someone else will just eventually start talking. Just joking. I'll keep going. I'm the moderator.
No, that was really funny, actually, though. No, hey, you know, I try. You want to give other people a chance to, you know, express their thoughts. You know, just can't overly dominate the conversation every 3 minutes, right?
Well, hey, Todd, I want to ask Todd about something. Todd,
bring me back to the 70s, and I dig it. And
Todd.
go ahead, Marks.
Go ahead.
Todd, I want to hear your opinion of, you know, we saw both conventions go by, and I didn't hear a mention, other than from some underling at the DNC who said something about wanting to not interfere with states, but there was really no mention on any of the prime time speeches for legalization or cannabis rights. Do you really think it's going to be a platform issue in this election?
Wow. Well, yeah. Well, Bernie.
Somebody asked him about Chris Christie, and if he was going to be AG, and if he would let him interfere with states' law. And Trump actually said that he wouldn't interfere with the states.
I gotta say, I mean, I think sometimes that Donald Trump is working for Hillary Clinton and has been for decades, and I just think this is pure theater. And I think that Bernie Sanders really, in the hippie in me that loves everything he said, can't believe he made it as far as he made it in a fixed system. And I think we have such a dog and pony show that it's hard for me to take it seriously, in all honesty. And I'm not surprised that marijuana is not being mentioned. And this is the thing that I keep saying over and over again. It's not surprising to me because so many of the people that are bringing you the DNC and the RNC are making money off of cannabis staying illegal right now. And that's just the truth. And the status quo is making a lot of people rich. And that's why a lot of people are now not neutral, but are fighting against legalization, because it's eminently happening, and that means they're going to see a drop in profits. And that's happening in the cannabis industry, outside the cannabis industry, in the alcohol industry. You've seen news reports about pharmaceutical companies selling less pharmaceuticals in states like Colorado, or a drop in pharmaceutical usage in those states. A drop in pharmaceutical usage means a drop in profits for some company that was making money that's not now. And I guarantee you that that's going to hit their radar, and they're going to go, we should oppose this like everywhere else. And we as a community need to realize that alcohol companies are going to oppose legalization, wine companies are going to oppose legalization, pharmaceutical companies are going to oppose legalization, all of them, from petrochemical companies don't want to see farmers growing hemp and competing with ethanol and methanol with what they're bringing in from the Middle East. It's true. I mean, so we're going to see resistance starting to come up all over the place. So it not being mentioned, I'm not surprised. Them speaking out against legalization surprised. Them not speaking out against prohibition surprised me more, if you will. I mean, think of it. It was a platform of the Republicans in the 80s, the drug war, you know, and now they're not selling us that anymore. They realized it's incredibly unpopular. But do I think that Hillary Clinton's going to get in there and legalize weed? No more than I thought that Obama was going to get in there and legalize weed. I didn't, you know, hope is irrational. And hope and change, we didn't see much change, did we? 8 years later, is there anyone that 8 years ago supported Obama can point and say, yeah, he legalized weed and he lowered the federal prison rate, got all those people that had those inappropriate sentences on drug wars out? He pardoned more people than the presidents before him combined, but he did not make a dent in what the drug war has done to disservice this country of our liberties, in my opinion. You know, he didn't legalize weed, and that I got to say, for someone as intelligent as him, to have the history he had, to be able to read the history that cannabis had in this country, and to have not done anything about it, that's, to me, fucked up.
Yeah,
And you know what, this is inexcusable at this point.
It shows the depth of prohibition. I mean, and that's why he can't change it. It's not just when they say that one person can, but what did Clinton say right after his first interview in Rolling Stone after he got out of office? I should have done something about marijuana, but I didn't. You know, because they got so many other things they have to deal with. So that's why we're doing it in the states. That's why we're doing it state by state, because we can't wait on the feds. We have to do it ourselves. We have to lead by example.
But can I put this in perspective? And it was the guy from Leap said this, so it's not mine. He says we need one more than half of Congress and the president, and it's over. And the truth is Congress brought us this bullshit, and those people need to be held accountable for what they fucking are ignoring, which is the history that founded this country. The shit we talk about on Hash Church, and we take for granted that we know that the first flag was made of hemp, and the first Bibles were made of hemp, and the first Declaration of Independence was printed on hemp. All this stuff is funny when we're saying it, but these people in D.C. aren't taking it seriously enough to let us grow the shit, or to stop locking us up for the shit, or to let us trade the shit.
It's because they know the people that vote are the religious people, man. It's like, you can't get fucking elected. And if you were to come up and say, I'm an atheist, and try to get elected in the States, you would have no chance. You may as well say you're a communist, you know? So, like...
And you're a communist for saying that.
I sure am. But the point is that, like, that's a huge power. That's a huge power that all those people, those religious people, those older conservative folks, they have a huge power. And, you know, whether it's Democrats or the Republicans, they feel like they have to kowtow to those motherfuckers because they're such a big voting group, you know?
Absolutely.
And stoners aren't, you know? So
yeah, but you've got the lieutenant governor who's going to be running for governor here in California going around touting, 64. So, it shows you we're not going to wait on the feds. We're not going to wait,
Oh, and hey, Gavin wants to be a president someday. He is, but this is the new way of thinking. I think they're the Gary Johnsons. There's others. There's like Gavin that realize which way the wind's blowing, and they're going to seek out our vote. I mean, when you look at how close Prop 19 came from winning, that's serious. These are 3.5 points from winning was really something they didn't expect. They want those voters' support because if you vote against them,
look at the AG of California, Kamala Harris. It was such a narrow margin. It was the cannabis people who saved her, and she knows that, and she's been very responsive to our issue to an extent. But she also has her eye on the bigger picture. She wants bigger political aspirations. So.
We have to make this more popular for the politicians to understand that we are not just right, morally right, ethically right. It's politically the right thing to do. And the problem is, again, we're up against our own NRA style lobby groups that are against us. Jack Harry used to point it out all the time. Every single industry that sees cannabis as a competitor has pooled their resources to bring you the drug war.
Yeah.
Oh, and you can't tell me.
I don't know if I buy that as much as maybe it's different down there as it is up here, but we haven't seen any really significant lobbying by...
Oh, can I just stop you? Man, when I became an activist, you guys couldn't even fucking buy High Times in Canada. Your country was so backwards ass. So the shit we've seen changing in Canada has not been that long, and you're complaining about not being able to drop a bud off of cannabis at a laboratory without being against the law. You're not exactly all that advanced. You know, I mean, I love Canada, but come on, give me a break. You couldn't buy
but
books there.
Todd, we have a fucking international system. We have an international system where we're shipping weed all over the world, from Australia to Italy to Germany now, like Croatia. Give me a break, dude.
It's
Don't say
great
stupid shit.
I disagree, Todd. You know, when you take a look.
Seriously, stop for a minute. In the early 90s, guys, you could not purchase High Times in Canada.
That week in and week out, but who cares? That's like the past, man. We're talking about the reality of today.
Hold on a minute. It puts everything that we've accomplished into a small timeline. And everything, where we're at right now, going back to you talking about the problems you saw with testing and your inability to make sure the stuff you were consuming doesn't have pesticides at your own labs in Canada, is this is the problem with, you couldn't even go in and buy a magazine that had been in print in America for 15 years in Canada, and that was only 22 years ago. 23 years? How, Chris, when did you get the
that I just said to, you're talking about the same thing that I just said to you. You sat there and said it's all these other industries that are going to be fighting to keep marijuana legal, and I'm trying to say we haven't seen any of that in Canada, right?
Yeah, I agree. You know, it's like, I don't even think the oil companies really know about hemp for fuel. It's like not even on their radar.
It's not, no, because it's not going to make
Because it's not economically viable to make liquid fuel from hemp.
Can I just pause you for a minute? You haven't gone to South America and Brazil where they got corn. They get most of their fuel from ethanol, methanol.
That's a different economics down there because it's so available, because there's huge volumes of sugarcane that's being produced.
All right, and we couldn't grow hemp here. Think about what you're saying.
Hold on for a second. So the plant uses photosynthesis, right, to basically take small molecules and make high molecular weight cellulose. It is not economically viable to take that high molecular weight, chew it up to small molecules again, feed it to a bacteria to ferment it to make alcohol. Just not economically viable. The cars will go twice as farther down the road if you take that same amount of hemp and you burn it, convert that steam into electrons, put that electrons into batteries, and the cars will go twice farther down the road than they would from the ethanol derived from the same amount of hemp. So it's just not economically viable to make liquid fuel from hemp.
Can I just pause you for a minute?
Sure.
And I don't disagree with what you just said, but what Jack used to always teach us is you can make fuel 3 ways with cannabis. You can make methanol, ethanol, and biodiesel. And the truth is that we don't know what the numbers would really be because we haven't had the opportunity as Americans, free Americans in America, to grow hemp and to try to compete with the petrochemical industry, who damn well straight knows where other sources of energy come from. And if you don't think they do, you're naive. And I'm not trying to be rude, but anybody says that the petrochemical companies don't know who their competitors are, don't get the sophistication of the petrochemical industry.
Yeah, I totally agree with everything you said, Todd. The problem is, and the fundamental problem with replacing oil today, is that the cost of any alternative fuel is directly tied to the cost of oil. And so when your competition basically owns you like that, there's no way you could take them over. The fact of the matter is that, again, it's the food, and we've discussed this before on Church, is going to be the ultimate driver for hemp, not fuel. Food is going to be really what's going to put hemp grown on the large scale as a row crop like soybean and like corn, and it's going to go into feed and food applications, and that's going to create then, again, the byproducts of the fiber and the cellulose that could then be converted to other stuff to replace wood for cellulosics. But just to make it into liquid fuel, it's just not economical, because think of that high molecular weight cellulose as stored sunlight. It takes a lot of energy to break down those fibers. I mean, that's one of the reasons why, you know, the fiber is so engineered to do so many other things. To turn it into fuel is just
not to sound like a weirdo though, but you do realize that farmers could take excess hemp seed oil and turn it into the fuels they use.
That's right. It's probably better to take that hemp seed oil and to turn it into food and feed people who are starving.
A certain amount was granted. I understand what you're saying.
Is the driver, not fuel.
The oil,
I'm pretty hungry.
The oil
I'm pretty hungry now. I'm hungry.
The oil is too expensive to put into vehicles. If
But
you
it's-
go,
yes.
That's right, Mark.
look
That's
at how
correct.
much it costs
It's not
for-
economical.
Go look at how much hemp oil
Again,
costs
we
for a
don't
liter.
know until we get the opportunity to actually grow it. And
No,
Oh,
but
yeah.
I mean, don't get me wrong. Taking biodiesel, which is spent grease from the McDonald's, and doing an esterification process on that, and taking that stuff and putting it into buses and trucks is perfectly fine, because you're taking stuff that would normally either be thrown out or incinerated and turning it into a transportation fuel. That can be economical. But to think that you could essentially grow a liquid fuel by having a liquid fuel come from a crop is just not economical in the era of cheap oil. And even if oil were over $100 a barrel, it would still not be economical. And all of those crops require a lot of petrochemical inputs in terms of the everything that's required, the tractors and
I would only slow you down and say this. Do you not think that American farmers should have just as much of an opportunity to work with hemp as they do any other crop?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I'm on that side. Yeah. I'm psyched to see it grown here in Pennsylvania again.
And until we see varying degrees of genetics being used in appropriate places, we're not going to know the true benefit of hemp.
That's true. I think hemp batteries probably have more of a threat to the fuel industry than hemp fuel, though. You know, it's all going electric. That's the way things are going, man. There's a huge...
Well, you can get those nanotubes from any source of carbon. It doesn't need to be from hemp stock, but yeah. I mean, when it comes down to it, again, hemp and what we're talking about here is just cellulosics. I mean, the shit grows on trees, right? So, yeah.
Well, I mean, I don't know. I think that Todd has a good point in the fact that I grew up in Kansas and saw, you know, hundreds, thousands of acres of wheat being grown, and Kansas supplies number two, I think, in the world for their grain and wheat. And if we had 4 or 5 states that were dedicated to growing hemp for, let's say, food, let's say for car parts and structure, and say for batteries and other things. Hold on, come here. Sorry. And if we started doing that in all those different categories, we maybe don't know if it's economical or not. I think that's a little too early to say. We haven't been given a full chance.
Yeah, but I mean, we got to remember where this conversation started from, which was, you know, who's going to legalize weed in the States, you know, Hillary or Trump, and it's like, it's not.
No, it really came from the question of whether or not
it's neither, but
the Holder memorandum or the Holder or the Cole memorandum is non-binding, right? So we can get a new swinging dick in the White House who completely says no, shut Colorado down, shut Oregon and Washington down.
But they're not going to do that. I would be.
Yeah, right. I don't think
that is almost past the possibility level at this point, because you know even the most
but the possibility exists, right?
Do you not think that even the most fiscally conservative Republicans are looking at $1 billion generated in a really not that popular state like Washington? I mean, when I say not that popular, not that many people in Washington State.
$1 billion is nothing. It's not those guys that are going to fucking change it. It's going to be the American companies that are setting up huge-ass greenhouses in California and that want to be exporting their cannabis, their medical cannabis, to all over the world like other...
No, then you missed my point. What I was trying to say is that they're looking at this as a form of revenue for state coffers, period. And instead of spending money to eradicate it, I think they're going to look at flipping it and embracing it because they want to tax every single gram of it as they've showed us.
Yeah, but that's rarely how things get changed in the States. It seems to me that things get changed in the States when somebody with money wants it to happen. When they have
two sides of it, though. Hold on. Listen, the whole East Coast doesn't even have initiative laws. When I grew up, I never even saw a petitioner outside of a supermarket because in Rhode Island we don't have an initiative process. So Rhode Island's medical marijuana law had to actually change from within the legislators. And when the legislators in Rhode Island found out the governor was going to veto them, they all got together and got enough votes that his veto would not be able to override their medical marijuana law. So we have seen politicians change the laws based on what is happening in other states. That's exactly what's happening. So when you think for a minute that they're not taking Colorado numbers, Washington numbers, what'll be now Oregon numbers into consideration when they're back doing their own books and their own eradication programs, it just seems to be
I hear that.
not the way it's working.
I hear what you're saying, but what I'm saying is that the real money that's going to come from cannabis is not going to be in taxes going to the state. The real money is going to be the entrepreneurs and the industries that the U.S. is building, okay, that have to be able to sell on an open market.
I don't disagree with it at all. It's just that the politicians have been what has been the gatekeepers in our way of having legality to do it.
Todd,
right?
There's patents already issued.
We're not in disagreement. All I'm saying is the politicians have been the gatekeepers to allowing us this legal commerce opportunity that you're talking about.
They are, but what I'm saying is that the thing that's going to change that is going to be, it's not going to be voter initiatives. It's not going to be any of that shit. It's going to be some big dude that's going to make a fat stack by having the laws change.
Well, that's not how it changed in Rhode Island. It changed with a bunch of legislators getting educated and changing it.
I'm talking about the United States of
last
America.
time I checked, Rhode Island is one of the states in the United States. I'm not trying to be rude. I'm trying to give you an actual comparison of what's happening here in the United States and various states in change. In states that don't have initiative processes where a rich guy can come along and try to buy his will, that's what's happening. And I'm not trying to California. No, I'm talking in Rhode Island, dude. They've had a medical law for years now. I mean, this is how it's changing. I'm not. It's not like I'm giving you some fantasy. This is fact. This is what's happening.
No, I know, but none of that stuff changes the federal law.
Well, all of it has implications on the federal situation because the federal law becomes more unworkable all the time, and they're going to get to a point where they have to change because everything has changed around them. And I totally am. I think this is a fuck situation because if you go back 40 years into the 60s, the feds were the ones that were desegregating schools. They were the ones enforcing our civil rights, not stripping them away. But in the drug war and with marijuana, it's been the federal government that's been stripping away our rights and not the states. The states are now the ones that are coming desegregating the schools by giving us our cannabis back, so to speak.
No, it's because they use cannabis as a tool to, oppress a whole group of people. That's why. I mean, that was by intention.
Hell
that was by design.
Yeah. Hell yeah.
Well,
but this is why we have
do you
to
guys
fight
think there's any do you guys think there's any truth to basically that whole rumor about August 2nd is next week? I think it's all bullshit.
That August 2nd is next week?
Yeah, no. Yeah, rescheduling, blah, 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 just a bunch of stuff. They're going to drop it when they want to drop it. In 1999, they dropped it on the Friday before the 4th of July weekend, buried the story so that practically nobody reported on the fact that Marinol went from a Schedule 2 to a Schedule 3, the first time in CSA history that a chemical was down-scheduled. And they buried it. And in some ways, I don't know. I don't believe any of that stuff that I read with,
No, that they decided the hearings were just had. There's going to be no decision by August 2nd, if a decision at all.
Yeah, they're fucking dragging it out.
And how would that change it? Cocaine is a Schedule 2 substance. It's still highly illegal. You can't make cocaine at your house.
Yeah, but I don't see cocaine dispensaries.
Oh no, I'm not saying you don't, but it's still a Schedule 2. It's cocaine. Listen, dudes, cocaine and the drug war were synonymous with each other, right?
Hey guys, if it goes to Schedule 2, then only a drug manufacturer can sell it.
I just wanted to mention that we did lose Chris Bennett. He couldn't get a word in edgewise, and he was just saying, "Hey, you need to moderate that chat better." He's just giving good advice. He's saying people need to learn to share the group speak better. So I know sometimes we get intense and we want to say our piece, but we also have to respect the other people in the room and not talk over one another and stuff. And that was unfortunate because Chris was going to lay in with some good information. So let's try to remain calm, smoke many bong rips, and just share the floor of conversation so everyone can get their perspective across. Mr. Chris, sorry we missed you, Chris. Nonetheless, we'll. Your timing was just slightly off. if you had come in 5 minutes earlier. You literally came in 1 minute before that intense conversation broke out.
I would also say that, you know, Chris is one of my favorite panelists, and he's been a friend of mine for a long, long time, but he's no one to talk. When he feels like saying something, he goes. And I like listening, and sometimes it's not so much about that, it's waiting, because we hit lulls, and the nice part is this is long form, and people can express themselves fully, and when he does it, I listen. I don't mind waiting patiently for my turn to say something, because I remember what I'm going to say. It's sometimes I think Chris should be more patient.
Well, and I feel that as well, but at the same time, I feel like I've had a hard time getting a word in edgewise a few times. So it's not being said to you in particular. It was said to the room that, of course, something to make the room better would always be to just share the talk. I'm not saying that waiting isn't a good idea either. I'm just saying that what he said was good advice, and we should all take it.
To a degree, though, I think what works in this being long form is that we don't step on each other's toes, and people can have full thoughts, and that's really expressed. And when Chris does it, dude, I love it. When Chris goes off about something, I love it. It's same with all you guys. I mean, it depends on. I don't know. I just think he should have been more patient, waited to speak his turn, and we would have listened to him for just as long. To be honest, I think that's what's nice about Hash Church.
I was feeling frustrations.
Yeah, I didn't say a word for the first hour and a half of Hash Church. Just sat here and listened to everybody. You know, I mean.
You're a good listener, Mark.
Yeah. My dog barks a lot too, so.
You have to learn to listen for when the lulls are, and you know, it's if as we know, when we listen, there are there, but at the same time, yeah, it was a discussion, but it was a good discussion. I
think it's one of the things that we love about Todd is that when Todd gets going, he just goes, and to let him go and let him go and let him go. Eventually, like a joint, he runs out of steam.
He burns out and turns into a roach.
Great metaphor, guys. Great metaphor. 3 joints in the Hash Church. I would agree.
Yeah, so it wasn't against anyone in particular. I've interrupted a million people on Hash Church. I'm taking the advice personally. It's just good. It's good advice.
Hey, when you were talking reggae earlier, I didn't hear you say King Tubby at all.
Yeah, I mean, you know, I don't have a huge history with King Tubby. I've liked what I've heard. I probably would have shouted out Kid SI well before King Tubby personally, which I should have shouted out Kid SI because he's someone I do listen to a lot. So much reggae out there. I mean, Ijaman, Barrington Levy. There's just gazillions of them, and I'm a huge reggae fan, so I like a lot of reggae.
I listened to a lot of the dub and the Desmond Decker and stuff like that. A lot of the earlier stuff. It was traditional in my earlier punk days as we learned about the roots of all the ska that we were listening to and where it actually came from. Finding all those crazy discs back in the day. Now Trojan has all these crazy, awesome collections you can get. Back in the day, it was all finding whatever you could, wherever you could, and it was usually few and far between. Whoa, what happened to you, Bubbleman?
Dad stuff.
I was giving my wife a kiss off camera for bringing me a beautiful cinnamon bun with 2 strawberries.
You can show her you love her on camera. We don't mind.
Well, I respect her privacy.
Respect.
We ought to have a Hash Church episode where all spouses show up instead of us, right?
No, you all don't get it. I think she's taken a conscious role to be not on camera for most of Mark's escapades into YouTube land. She's done a very good job of avoiding all of it.
She went to the school of Sam. She went to the school of Sam when it comes to video privacy.
Yes. And you have enough obsessive videoing for more than 2 people, so she's covered completely.
I think Sam's obsessive school was a different course. He was like the high intensity grad course in staying anonymous. Served him well for so many years.
Right?
I do agree. I am totally anonymous.
You're totally infamous. What are you talking about?
Maybe that's what I'm infamous about.
People have photos of your arms and hands. Screenshots. Yeah, check this out. It's Skunkman's arm. Yep. There it is. I'll never forget certain people at the Cannabis Cup coming up to my booth. It was always just certain people that would do this. Hanging out, sitting with Sam, maybe Rob, or maybe some other people, just puffing bowls. And then someone would come up and be like, "Hey, can I take a picture?" Man, you never seen Sam move so fast.
Man, he didn't even have to say, "Can I take a picture?" Just the camera came out.
Yeah,
He saw the camera strap.
No, in fact, you know, the only other person I ever seen do that in my life, Sam, and not quite run away like that, but I was sitting with, I was at my gallery years ago, and we were watching a beautiful sunset, and a bunch of people, you know, like Marcel Braun might have been there. I can't remember all who were there, glass blowers and hash makers, and Woody Harrelson actually was there. And I went to pick up my camera to just take a picture of the beautiful sunset. I was like, oh my God, that's so, and just out of the corner of my eye, I saw how uncomfortable it made him feel. I think he thought I was going to take a picture of him, which I totally wasn't. I don't do that. But fuck, it was the same kind of like, oh, like, change the vibe right up in a second for this guy. And I was just like, I apologized afterwards, and he was like, oh, dude, don't worry about it. I don't want to, you know, be having my picture taken in certain situations. And it's good to respect that for people.
Yeah.
You know, whoever they are, whether they're Woody Harrelson or whether they're Sam the Skunkman or whether they're Joe fucking Blow on the street, respect their, you know, not to take their picture or make video of them.
I've always been that way with the camera. I've always asked permission before I took a photo of somebody.
Nice. Yeah.
Yeah, just thought it was inappropriate, unless it was a crowd, you know, shot. But then, even then, I try to be kind of conscious.
Yeah. For sure. Yeah. Some people don't like it. And I also, it's a thing for, like, I don't really post my kids online a bunch. It's like their own, it's them. It's their privacy. It's their, if they want to do it later on when they're old enough, they can. But it's not really my decision to make for them in that sense.
You know, Instagram scares me because so many people post so much stuff that's highly personal, and I think they should separate their weed, their kids, and their guns. I don't think they should be fronting all that stuff out on the same page. I wish people were a little more concerned with privacy these days. It seems like everybody's giving it up. You know?
Right, man, it's the new fetish is to fucking show everything about your life.
Well, the new narcissism, for sure. I mean, it's one thing. I've always come from that old school way of whatever you do, don't show it. You know, do it, don't show it. And I see way too much.
Showing everything. You should all take the pill with a little camera in it and show yourself from the inside out.
You first.
Don't hold your breath.
No.
I wonder if you could patent the camera pill.
That's already done. They use that for gastrointestinal stuff currently.
I used to, when I first met Sam, I mean, he's known me with cameras the whole time, but as you can see as he sits there, there's nothing very interesting about filming Sam. It's just, he just sits there, he wears that little red hat, and I mean, he's got a lot to say, but there's not a lot of action going on there. It's just a doll.
It's the star scarf that really gets me.
Yeah.
And he's supposed to speak in rhyme.
It happens every once in a while.
It does happen every once in a while.
Usually when I'm making a joke or trying to make a joke.
Or a light of your smoke.
Hey, so does anyone know when the Irun festival is? The gathering, I think it's in Spain somewhere.
Yeah, it's northern Spain, I believe, isn't it?
Is this in September or something? Or I was going to go to this Jamaica conference, and now that it might not be happening or it's been postponed till later, I was thinking of maybe going to that one in Spain. Be kind of interesting.
It got postponed?
Yeah, it got postponed. I guess they wanted to do it, make sure it was done 100% right, and they weren't. The lady Michaela that was organizing just said, you know, I'm going to pull out and just we'll redo it under a different platform to maintain success. So I was like, okay, well, thanks for at least letting me know early enough. I got a few things in September.
Yeah,
here
maybe
in
we should go to
Vancouver.
Spain.
Yeah,
That'd be
it'd be
cool.
nice. You know, if it's not at the same time as the Lyft one, I've managed to. Yeah, I want to go to that Lyft one. There's some good panels that are going to be being done. I think actually maybe Brent might be on a panel. That one that I was talking to you about with Hillary. So they've had some conversations. So yeah, it's always good to support the local Vancouver events. You know, go to them. The last one that Salome put on was quiet, but still good. I met some decent people, some new people that I'd never met in the industry, and definitely got to see some interesting talks. Oh, there we go. Gonna do a guild camp with a dab bar. Where's that, in Irun? How about the Emerald Cup? Yeah, well, I'd love to come to the Emerald Cup. It just seems like the craziest thing to put on my waiver for my first time to go to the U.S. Like, it seems like I should go down there for like a photography job or something like somewhat legitimate.
Don't put anything to do with a job. Don't say you're going down for work at all.
Well, I don't have to go down for work at all.
Yeah.
I can go down for whatever I want. I want to go down literally and do the safest, most best thing that they would appreciate me doing and not do anything that they... I haven't been allowed in the country for a long time. I don't want to go and ruin it right away. I want to be able to kind of visit and hang out.
Why can't you just come on vacation?
Well,
Why
Go
can't
to the
you
Grand
just come?
Canyon.
I can.
Yeah.
I
Take
Go
your
to a
camera
national
and just
park.
Sightseeing.
Yeah, take your kids to see the redwoods, man.
There you go.
Yeah, that's definitely something I'd love to do.
It also kind
Just so
of puts you in the
happens
right
Sonoma
neighborhood.
County Fairgrounds is not too far from those. In fact, the 101 leads you directly to it.
Well, I'll have to check that out when I'm down there.
All my buddies just so happen to be 2 hours away from this forest. I just drive on down.
They were all there.
Oh, look, it's the Emerald Cup. I just so happen to have my camera.
Hey, Bubbleman, I saw recently a post, and it had Redbeard going across the border in his bus.
What?
In his hippie bus.
No.
And he was tweeting pictures of him and legal weed in Oregon, and I fucking thought to myself, if Redbeard is getting across the border, then you're not going to have much of a problem.
Man,
So.
Remo too. Remo goes across and goes to all the events now.
All the time. I see him out all the time. Restaurants, the corner of my eye, wherever I go, he's there.
That's amazing. Good for them. Well, I want to be on the, the bottom line is this. I can assure you, American Customs, if you're watching, I have no interest in coming to your country and causing any disruption of any sort. I'm only going to do good. I have many friends there, so come on, let the Bubbleman come down and hang out. I swear I'll be good for the country. I swear. I won't tell people that they shouldn't have guns. I promise. Felony charges. Felony charges, if you get a felony charge, you're not allowed into the country. It's the same for U.S. You get like a DUI, you can't come up to Canada, which is, I think, ridiculous as well. I have some cannabis felony charges, possession and trafficking, and they don't like that. My case is, obviously, I was helping the Compassion Club, and it was a unique case, but nonetheless, got to apply for a waiver. It's been almost 20 years. I think I'm good to go.
Have you applied for the waiver?
I've got it all. Basically, I'm waiting on one last document. Do you know how many hoops they make you jump through?
Yeah.
Homeland Security, man, they are not fucking around.
No, it's when you said customs, it's not customs, it's DHS.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
And when you're working down there, it's a big deal. So that's why I was saying for photography gigs. I mean, they do it to American photographers. I saw an American guy coming up to do just film at Whistler. Right? They were meeting up some snowboard guys, and they were going to do some filming, and they gave them a real hard time.
Well, yeah, because you're supposed to have the right paperwork when you do that. You can go down for jobs, no problem, as long as you have the right paperwork.
Yeah, well, it's hard to get them because a lot of jobs, like a photography job, if you're not some unique expert, and somehow they want you to hire an American. They don't want to bring in a foreigner to do the job.
For sure, but it's really easy to get a letter from a group in America saying that you are a specialist in what you do.
Oh, I know. I went through the whole thing. I know all about it, man.
Yeah, it happens. You can get jobs down there. It's not impossible.
Yeah, but it's not easy either.
Well, dude, and even just getting a waiver just to get across the border isn't easy. It's as ridiculous, trust me.
Yeah.
So I'm ready to jump through the hoops, though. You know, I would like to be able to go down and visit my my American brethren. Oh, actually, someone in the chat says they have a drug tunnel, and I'm skinny enough to fit in it. So, shit.
There's options, man. There's tons of options out there.
There's
like that.
I'm gonna go with the. You know, yesterday when the forestry or the conservation officers came by, I was like, I'll just go insure my bike. Like, whatever. What are you telling me I need to do? If that's what I need to do, I'll just go do it. You know, everyone else was like, just drive your truck up the road and unload there. They won't follow you. And I'm like, nah, dude. I'll just. If this is the hoop they need me to jump through, I'm happy to jump through it. So the next time I see them, I can just show them the picture of me actually jumping through that hoop already, and they'll go away.
You do realize, Mark, the last time I visited you up in Vancouver, I did come through one of those tunnels.
Well, I can't believe, okay, how ridiculous is this? Sam comes to visit, and they're like, oh, it says here we denied you once or something. It's like, yeah, in like 1967 or something for not having enough money because he was meeting his wife who had the money. He just had a small amount of money. They went different ways for whatever reasons. They were meeting back up. They're like, no, you can't come into the country. So 30 fucking years later, they tell him that again because of the previous 3 decades prior, you can't come in. I thought it was the most ridiculous thing ever, personally, but.
Well, I definitely won't drop your name again because when I came into the country one time, they asked me who I was going to see, and it just came out.
Drop my name.
I did drop your name, and that's when they looked at me sideways and then pulled me aside and went through all of my stuff for hours. That was the one time I told you. I was like, yeah, I don't really like coming into the country. But then the next time, which was the lift, they just asked me what I was doing. It's like, I'm going to a conference, and this is what I'm doing. And then basically...
I don't know that, Bubbleman.
I don't know. I don't know that dude, Marcus. Don't know him. Never
well, guys,
did,
I'm gonna tunnel my way to a kitchen because I'm really hungry after 2.5 drinks. Yeah, exactly. That's part of it. I've been thinking about the kitchen ever since you showed us that cinnamon roll and strawberries.
I haven't touched the cinnamon roll, but I have eaten now all of the strawberries.
All right, well, on that note, y'all been cool. Sorry, Chris, wherever you are, come back. I would love to have heard Chris talk about ancient history and that article. Maybe next week.
Yeah, I'll ask him for sure. It was his timing as well. Had he come in right when I sent that message, we were talking about history. We had just stopped talking about history 2 minutes before he came in.
Yeah, man. Fuck history. I'm just kidding. Well, everybody, have a great day. I send love.
There was a funny quote from Chimera right after Chris came in where he said, well, that doesn't matter, it's the past, and it did make me chuckle in my head a little bit. It was a different context that he was talking about, but just the sentence without the context with Chris coming in was like, that's funny.
Hey, Chimera, I meant that as a compliment, man. Canada's come a long way in a short time. When you go from having banned books to having hemp growing and medical legal producers, and it's amazing.
No, for sure. And, you know, what the point that I was kind of making was that there's actually some incredible companies in the United States that are doing some really amazing things with cannabis. And I just think it's kind of fucked up that the federal law keeps them out of the international market where they'd win. They'd be like Apple, you know what I mean? Like they'd dominate in the market. And so I think that's going to be a factor It might be more of a factor.
You know what though? Do you not see a little bit of like Seagram's liquor in Canada and like Jack Daniel's in Tennessee, and in a sense the way that their markets, you know, Seagram's became hugely wealthy company. Looking up Seagram's is amazing. And Jack Daniel's is no slouch. You know, they do billions. You know, 119 billion bottles a year of Jack or whatever. It's ridiculous. But I mean, don't you think the economies are going to change as the laws around them and, you know, changes as well? Because obviously Seagram's had to jump on JD in the international market because JD was still an illegal producer under, you know, the federal prohibition for a time in the 20th century. They had to kind of reorganize and recoup and then jump into the market afterwards. I see a similarity.
Yeah, I don't know what the Seagram's, if Seagram's were only doing whiskeys, but I thought they were doing more types of alcohol. It's kind of hard to compare.
Oh, I don't know. They were doing, I'm sure, a lot of liquors. I don't know particular. You know, I'm sure they had it going on. I mean, they grew into a $1
You have to remember
company.
this, Todd. You got to remember this, Todd, too. And this is also fucking legislatures should pay attention to this. American Prohibition began after Canadian Prohibition was over. So, you know, that says a lot. That's why Canada was shipping down all that booze to the States.
What I'm gonna have to look it up now. But when was there a time period that you can rattle off that was during Canadian alcohol prohibition?
I think it ended in 1917 and it began in like 07 or maybe it was 1912.
So it was just another 10-year folly by the government, and then we went and did it ourselves.
It was short. You know, that was all the temperance movement and all the orange and the temperance folks, right? That were really pushing the evils of alcohol.
To me, it's quite it's surprising how long cannabis prohibition has lasted in light of the information that we've been able to share. I really would have expected it to come to a halt much quicker with the dissemination of information.
They had, I mean, when did it start in the States? 37, and then it really ramped.
California was even earlier.
And but it really ramped up in the 60s, right? That's when all the
Nixon brought us the drug war. In 1968, he uttered the terms the drug war, and then the CSA hit in the early 70s, and that's when the DEA was formed. The DEA came around 71, 72.
So consider that the cannabinoid receptor 1, CB1, was found in 1998, and anandamide was discovered in 1992. You know, they had 25 years of solid fucking prohibition propaganda that really, you know, built a wall that we've had to take down brick by brick, and that's why we're still fucking taking it down.
Yeah, the institutionalized bigotry we're up against is it's a lot. It's amazing.
Yeah, and it's, you know, it is tied to, there is that whole impropriety thing about cannabis. You know, when I was working in Sacramento, I remember leaving the gas station with a 6-pack of beer, and they insisted that it was law that I had to put it in a bag, right? Like, you couldn't be seen with beer on the street, right? You couldn't be seen to be carrying beer, which is kind of fucked up, you know? So it's like, and even the smokers' laws are like that. You know, you can have cannabis, but even in Denver, you definitely can't be smoking it outside. You can go back to your house and do it, but you can't be in public smoking a joint. You know, so I think that is all influence from the religios. You know.
Yeah, but I think they're becoming less popular all the time. We're breaking all of.
They are becoming less popular. That's
Yeah.
true. They're becoming less popular, but the politicians still pander to them. Right.
I concur completely. American is, you know, absolutely corrupted with religion, in my opinion. It has been leading our policies for far too long, and I think that science is coming around and more people are starting to look at the reality of things, and I can only have optimism for this century that this will be the third wave. You know, Alvin Toffler did a great book called The Third Wave. He said the first wave was agricultural, the second wave was industrial, and the third wave was going to be intellectual, because we were all going to have this consciousness and this, you know, information, and that we would have this intellectual revolution that inevitably happened as we all became more educated and tuned into the world around us. And it's a fascinating book. It did really well. It was on the bestseller probably late 70s, early 80s, but I always found it fascinating. He was also the one that put out this really great concept that we had basically two tiers of an educational system, the covert and overt curriculum. You know, the overt curriculum was to teach us reading, writing, and arithmetic, but the covert curriculum of school was really to teach us how to get there on time, do as we were told, not question authority, and do rote, repetitive work without question. And he felt that what the third wave was going to break was that in the educational system, and that we would all get to this point of kind of like enlightenment in the way that we understood our world that much better, and we didn't have to live by fairy tales, folklore, you know, and the things that had guided us in the dark for so long.
Well, again, when I was in California, I took a Spanish class, and all the people in the class were teachers, pretty much, except for me. And, you know, we had to all give a presentation, and so like any foreign exchange student, I did what you do, you give a presentation on your home country. So I took a map of Canada, and I took all the labels of the province names off them, and I photocopied it and handed it out to the teachers. So on one side it was a Canadian map, on the other side it was a North American map, so that they could situate themselves to where they were. And man, not one of the teachers could name one of the provinces in Canada, correctly label it. Those were the teachers.
Not even one.
Not one. I think one. Actually, that's not true. I think one person got BC because they had visited BC once and they knew it was on the west coast.
2 letters that you have to remember.
Well, it was easy to remember. You know, they drove up from Washington, so clearly, if you can identify where fucking Seattle is, then you know you can find Vancouver. But you know, that's one thing that really needs to change in the States is less military spending and more money on education.
Don't feel bad. They did the same thing with foreign countries. So they asked Americans to identify foreign countries with their the name of the country removed, just the national borders. And yeah, Americans did really, really bad.
Yeah, well, that's by design, right? Like it's a lot easier if the media, like Todd's saying, this covert fucking education, it keeps people focused on football and, you know, like Todd said, showing up for work on time.
Yeah, but
well,
as long
distractions are aplenty.
As long as they'll give us free food stamps and free TV, I'm a happy guy.
Yeah.
That's interesting. Yeah. Well, now you pay for your TV in America. I mean, I don't know how many people have antennas on their roof and are picking up, you know, NBC, ABC, and CBS and a little PBS on the side. Now everybody owns cable or has a DirecTV, so we're paying for everything. I mean, I think it's. I think that we are going through an intellectual revolution. I think that more and more people having access to more and more information is a really good thing for all of humanity, because I think humanity is collectively pretty together. I mean, when you visit big cities and you drive down the highways and people are stopping to help other people out, and it's beautiful if you look at it like that. Sure, there's a lot of shit that goes down that's fucking crap, you know, started the show talking about it, but the truth is there's a lot of beauty in the community that we have, and I think that'll only increase, especially as we become more educated and we can communicate easier.
You know, the one thing I don't have a lot of love for Hillary, but that one thing that I did see come at her say something at the conference about, or Congress or whatever it was, about university
Convention.
fees being paid for people that are low to mid-income families, so like $45,000 a year to $125,000 a year.
This is Hillary Black.
Hillary Clinton.
Oh. Jeez. It's like you're talking positive about Hillary Clinton. I'm like, how could
But that was one thing that the Democrats are putting on there as part of their plan. You know, it's something that came from Bernie, right? The free education. I mean, Europe's got free secondary education.
Yeah, but not to sound like a weirdo, man. Look, Republicans are really not Republicans like they used to be 20 years ago. This is a small, polarized group of people that think building a wall between fucking Texas and Mexico is going to help. I mean, they're like loopy. You know, I mean, I don't want to be sounding rude, but when you're against a woman's right to have an abortion and you think fucking other religions are scary, you don't get it on so many levels. I mean, they are fucking nuts. They're a bad representation of what America really is. I mean, I really do think they're a minority.
These are the sheeple. These are the people that are manipulated by the fucking corporate media. That's what you get, you know?
Dude, they're all sucking on Donald's dick because they think he's rich, and this is why I think he's not going to kick down his fucking tax forms, because he doesn't want people to know what he's really worth. He ain't no Bill Gates. And the truth is that he pretends he is, and the truth is he's a lie. And I think that that's the thing with a lot of the supporters he has, is they look at the lies and they blow
he's
with
a fucking joke. I mean, did you see those the video clip of him? There's an audio clip of him. Someone called him for an interview, and he's pretending to be. He's on the phone. It's clearly him.
That was a long time ago.
No, it was a long time ago. But I mean, shit, dude. That's like we're talking about moral character. You know what I mean? You're gonna
But this is a guy that was trying to break into television. I know this sounds weird, but not to sound like a weirdo. I lived in Hollywood, and I met 20-something actors who would try to be like whatever, their own manager or their own agent, and they would try to do exactly what he did in that thing because, you know, and I've heard of it before. The fact that he got caught doing something so stupid, it just personifies the idiot that he is.
Right, so he's going to be commander and fucking chief. I mean,
no, I don't think he's... I hear what you're saying, but I really think that they're a minority in the bigger picture when, you know... That, you know, there's so much difference between where they're coming from, and I agree with Joe Rogan and Bill Hicks that, you know, it doesn't matter what side of the bird you're pointing to, the right wing or the left wing, it's still the same fucking bird. And I believe that that's the problem we've had in American politics for a long, long time. I think guys like Barney Frank are such an abnormality, it's not funny. I wish he wasn't, but... You know, maybe he represents an intelligent youth. Maybe he represents people that are fully informed getting together, and that's why he was pulling rock star style. You know, he'd show up to 10 or 20,000 people trying to listen to him speak because he resonated with so many, while at the same time Hillary Clinton and Donald Trump have to pay supporters to show up and cover their lunch and cover their parking and get them to go there, because that's how the Republican Party coaxes those people to come out. Yeah. And when you, it's absolutely true. When you look at the wide cuts to them, they don't have tens of thousands of supporters. They have hundreds. It's a pathetic minority that pretends to be a majority when reality is their whole backwards-ass ways of thinking is totally not acceptable in America anymore. At least I think so. The America that I grew up in, that I visited, I mean, I grew up in New England where we're a little more liberal, I know, but all that racist shit he spews is crap, and we all know it. I don't think that guy's got a rat's ass chance in hell. I think he just circuited all of his competitors, and he's winning in a small circle of idiots. But when he has to come in and face all the Democrats and all the liberals and all the free thinkers that are not bigots, that think women should have rights to choose, that don't think building a wall is a good idea, that know that he's fronting his wealth and it's fake and they don't admire that, I think he's fucked. And I think his fuckedness is going to come out real soon.
Well, I hope so. I hope it becomes like it was with McCain and fucking Palin, you know. I was nervous. I was nervous over that election.
Dude, I love it. I would want to shake his hand, though, because I think what he did to short-circuit them is the coolest thing I've ever seen in someone that likes to watch the politics of the theater of politics in America. What he did to the Republican Party this election cycle was just amazing.
Yeah, no, it was great.
It's amazing.
But the thing is, I don't think that's what he was trying to do, though. Maybe it
was.
No,
I don't think it was either. I mean, but from a guy that was trying to get on the TV and be famous, he didn't want to just be wealthy. He wanted to be famous. That's the guy faking being a manager to an interviewer. That's this guy. This guy was fucking chasing fame like crazy. And he'll say anything, do anything. He's been caught. And I don't know. I think it's funny. I mean, to me, not to sound rude, I think it's all a joke, and I hate to say I think it's all a joke, but when we can only talk about two idiots out of a country of, you know, almost 400 million, we're so screwed. You know what I mean? Like, we're so screwed. Really. And no one's talking about how much fun Bill Clinton's going to have in the White House with all that time on his hand. He's going to be the first lady man of the United States.
I'm going to invite Chris Bennett back in. Not that I don't love the political talk. It's really awesome and all.
History.
But, I'm going to invite Chris Bennett back in and talk about that article that Todd posted, because I do really want to hear him just give us 10 minutes about that.
That would be good.
As much as I want to hear about what the fun Bill Clinton's going to have in the White House, I can leave that for another day if you guys are good with it.
Welcome back, Chris.
Hey, how's it going, everybody?
Doing good, dude. I wanted to, well, first we've been having all sorts of funny conversations about, you know, cutting each other off and interrupting and changing the conversations thanks to the words that you gave me, and we had a whole discussion on that. But then we got sucked into politics, and I know you love to talk about politics too, but please don't.
Yeah.
I would love to hear, because Todd posted this article on Facebook, and what was that article called again, Todd?
I can't hear him.
It's about the history.
It's
I'll have to look it up on his page.
Oh, the one about gold bongs, yeah.
Well, it's tantalizing clues that suggest cannabis played a key role in the birth of civilization themselves.
This is a result of this recent academic paper that's come out in a historical agricultural journal by a variety of professors in Germany and I forget where else, China and another place. And it's, you know, basically following a lot of the same line of thinking that I wrote about in the first couple of chapters of my last book, Cannabis and the Soma Solution. And it's about this Indo-European spread of cannabis as well as what was taking place in China. And like 10,000 years ago, minimum, there was already independently established cannabis growing and production in both China and in Eurasia. And we know this from finds of hemp cloth in Taiwan, and then 12,000-year-old finds of cannabis cloth from Catalhoyuk as well. And you know, current archaeological evidence, you know, puts it back about 3 times as far as that. As far as fossilized impressions of woven fiber, which they believe was hemp, but there's no surviving material, so they're just impressions in clay. Puts it back about 28,000 years, and tools used for breaking the fibers off of the hemp stalk go back about 28,000 years, and they know that they were the same sort of tools because they were being used much later for hemp and were placed with hemp, you know, so it's the same sort of process. So this is like a huge thing. And then about 5,000 years ago, there was a huge Indo-European spread of cannabis. Indo-European cultures like the common ancestors, at least linguistically and partially DNA, of a variety of different cultures. And we know this through studying the history of language and root languages. And so the Indo-European roots for cannabis are the same in Sanskrit and French and German and English, which was the root word was canna, and all those words have this an in them. That's part of this root word and identifies the spread of cannabis. And we found, you know, sites of Indo-European use of cannabis, Celtic burial sites, Druidic sites, and then far off in China with these Gushi cultures, with the Chinese mummies, which many people know about, the 2,700-year-old cannabis. This is also part of the same Indo-European culture. They spoke an Indo-European language, and into Persia and the Middle East, and then eventually into India. And even the gold bongs that Todd had posted about, they're not actually gold bongs. These were cups and bowls. One news story got it wrong, and then it spread through the mainstream media that they were bongs. People weren't smoking out of bongs till millennia later, at least cannabis. And they were gold bowls and cups used for drinking a cannabis opium preparation. And this is important because the archaeologists that were directly involved from this, and this comes from Fatty Sam, who was in correspondence with them, identified the contents of these beverages was Haoma, which is the sacred Haoma of the Persian religion, which was a major sacrament of Zoroastrian religion, pre-Zoroastrian religion in the Middle East, and then became the Soma in India. So this is a major important find, and it goes together with this find of a 4,000-year-old temple in the Bactria Margiana archaeological complex, where they found evidence of cannabis, poppy, and ephedra being made into the same beverage, Hayoma. And it also has to do with this Chinese find. They were an Indo-European culture, and that find, that 2,700-year-old find, was also, if they found ephedra at those sites as well, so it's the same thing. It's interesting, there's a kind of a yin-yang relationship with cannabis in China and ephedra. Cannabis is known as ma huang, and ephedra is known as huang ma. It's a reversal of it, and they have kind of the opposite effects. One's very energizing, stimulating, and one's very relaxing. And these were mixed together in the BMAC region as well. So both of these plants were important things. And it's showing that, like, one of the first major items of trade was, in fact, cannabis. So, you know, they're saying, even some articles are saying, even the economy, it was originally this grassroots economy, the first cash crop. So this is, like, very important material. What it really shows is that we have a natural, indigenous right to this plant that goes back tens of thousands of years, and this is a part of our history and our culture and part of what made us human beings and led to culture. Go ahead. I didn't mean to shut everybody off.
I actually was talking, but I was on mute. You must have some, you must follow this stuff pretty carefully as well, Sam, with your love of collections and whatnot. Have you been following this history?
Absolutely, yes. As Chris said, I was in contact with the people, direct contact with the people who dug up the gold bongs, which turned out to be gold cups, as Chris mentioned. And no, every new interesting thing that happens, I'm interested both in the historical, the DNA, just, yeah, I find the evolution and the relationships between different cannabis families to be one of the most interesting things to me.
Awesome. Yeah, it's incredible. You know, it's like this, almost like a co-evolutionary force. Dr. Jeffrey Guy and John McPartland wrote a great article, I forget the title, but maybe Sam remembers it, about the possibility that cannabis played an important role in what's known as a Great Leap Forward, when things like fire making, tool making, and these type of things took place in this short period of evolutionary history, and speculate that cannabis may have played a role in that by facilitating novel ideas and perceptions of things.
So we got people in chat going on about, oh, all he talks about is Indo-European this and Indo-European that, and another gentleman is saying that history from the Europeans cannot be valued or trusted as fact. So how would you reply to that?
Oh, well, I think that's just kind of a racist point of view, you know what I mean? There's no doubt that there's been, you know, biased history historically, but this is archaeological information. It's got nothing to do with anybody going around to archaeological sites.
Yeah,
Right.
John McPartland is actually really the driving force behind the work that you mentioned with Jeffrey Guy, who is just, I think, really is just having his name on the paper because he's like the president of GW Pharmaceuticals. But John is doing a lot of work on this, dating sites with pollen that were found at the bottom of hemp retting ponds, and he's about to publish on this also in the next few months, I believe. I tried to get him to come on, but because he's still working with GW, he didn't think it would be a good idea for him.
Does he want me to call GW for him and make it smooth it all over?
Yeah, the article's called "The Evolution of Cannabis and Coevolution with the Cannabis Receptor: A Hypothesis." That's a really good article for anybody that wants to track it down. And also, it looks like Drug Guy has posted the actual article that spotted this latest round of talks, you know, like these articles, that news stories and stuff that have taken place there. Drug Guy, I think, has posted it. And it's a great article. And they go over a big list of finds of pollen and archaeological evidence, you know, carbonized seeds and things like that. You know, it's very difficult to study any plant in this kind of time period because most plant matter just breaks down and falls apart. Luckily with cannabis, a lot of people burnt it. And so that became carbonized, and this was able to survive down into the modern time, or else things like impressions of seeds and other things have survived. But it's very rare to find something like the find of cannabis in China, that 2,700 years old. It was just perfect conditions for preservation, and so the cannabis was in near mint condition.
Yeah, near mint condition, except all the cannabinoids had broken down.
Yeah.
But yeah, the resin glands looked, it was green, and the resin glands, you know, they were still intact, and the seeds were still intact. So,
you know, maybe Sadhu Sam has something to say about how this relates to. It doesn't seem like sativa and indica were separated at this point, from what I could understand from reading the papers on it. Do you think that this find has anything to do with, like, they're obviously cultivating it for its psychoactive content? I'm sure they didn't think it was psychoactive. But it was good, you know. It was like female cannabis, resinous cannabis, not like fiber cannabis, you know.
Well, they actually did a DNA study on it, and they found that it did have the THC producing genes in the plant. So it was what we would call cannabis indica, which is,
well, the leaves were like much thinner. Was it it didn't look the same as cannabis indica, though, didn't it? Wasn't it more of a sativa kind of on its way to that or something?
No, by cannabis indica, he means drug cannabis. He means more THC than CBD.
Yeah.
Not that it's widely or thinly.
Okay. Yeah. Well, it was definitely drug cannabis. So it's a pretty important find, and it fits so well with the Scythians. The Scythians were interrelated with this culture. It's all part of the same bigger cultural complex. The Scythians were, in fact, called the Haoma Varga, the Haoma gatherers, and served as part of this wider thing. And they were accused of burning cannabis. So we have the evidence, first written about by Herodotus, and then later substantiated by archaeological finds by Rudenko and other archaeologists at Scythian sites, that there were, in fact, they would burn cannabis. They would heat rocks, and then they would put these heated rocks in a brazier inside of a tent-like structure, throw cannabis on it, and then inhale the fumes. I don't know if it completely burnt or it was more of a vapor. 2500 BC.
Hot rocks, the hot rocks method.
Yeah, you were talking about seeds from being thrown on hot rocks. You're talking about the Pezerik tombs. These are cannabis seeds.
Yeah.
These are cannabis seeds from the Pezerik tomb, given to me by the Hermitage Museum.
Are those the
very
old ones?
beautiful?
But these are, I think, 2,400 years old.
Okay, yeah, I think you
Wonderful.
showed me those before. Those are amazing. That's historical. The hair on my arm stood up when you showed that shit, dude. That's amazing.
Yeah.
Are they smaller seeds, like in the size?
Excuse me? Can you say that again?
The size of the seed, like a smaller type of cannabis seed, as opposed to.
It's slightly smaller, but it's not really, really tiny.
No, they weren't.
I also have these from Redding ponds in various places in Europe, both the UK, Switzerland, and
Hold them up
these
a little
are
higher.
more than 1,000 years old, but they're seeds from Redding ponds.
Hold them up higher. There we go.
Oh, yeah, there we go.
Perfect.
Yeah, those ones are small, but you can tell they are grown. They are selected already by humans because they're bigger than the ones that. I mean, Sam has some really wild seeds from. Was it Kafiristan? Is that where the tiny ones are from?
From the Himalayas, but yeah, there's 8,000 to 1 gram.
Yeah, but those
Really tiny.
those would be what I would consider to be the wildest seeds that I've ever seen, just because they're so
Maybe
small.
me too.
Yeah. And and from those, if you hold those ones up beside the other ones, you can actually see that the ones that you got from the tomb are already like improved in size.
Yeah, no, they definitely have the hand of man to
Yeah.
me.
Yeah.
The hand of man. I like it. Someone was commenting on the drawing behind you, Chris.
Oh, that is the original logo for my shop, the Urban Shaman, and it's got Exochipili riding his bike, and everything's kind of turning psychedelic behind him. And so it's kind of a play on Albert Hoffman's bicycle ride, and combining it with the rebirth of Exochipili and psychedelic plants and that type of stuff. So yeah, done by a local artist, Bob High.
Oh, okay, it was Bob High. I
Bob
wasn't
High.
sure if that was one of yours or not. Okay, my bad.
I like the eye in the street light.
Yeah, yeah, it's full of stuff.
If anybody out there has ever seen cannabis seeds that have more than 800 to 1 gram, or for big seeds, 12 seeds to 1 gram.
Wow.
If anybody's ever seen 10 or 11, I'd like to see it. I'd love to see a photograph and talk to you about it.
Yeah, no kidding. I hear that the Chinese, like I've read anyways, that the Chinese used to grow cannabis seeds as big as garden peas for food purposes, but I don't know.
But that's where I got my 12 to the gram from Yunnan.
China has such a fabulous history as well with cannabis. You know, it's interesting how independently both Western culture and Chinese culture, you know, developed this identical, you know, relationship with this plant and industry, and not just for industrial purposes, but I don't know about the date of, like, you know, the people quote the date of the Pentasau was 2700 BC, but I think that's a bit fanciful. It's probably more like a few hundred BC before there's any copies of it. But you know, its role in early Taoist religion is really fascinating. The stuff that Joseph Needham has written about Chinese relationship with cannabis and Taoism is great. And there's a great quatrain from about 2,500 years ago. First a yin, then a yang. No one knows what I do. Jade buds of holy hemp for the one that lives apart. You know, just some beautiful stuff from back in that time period. And then, you know, it's fascinating stuff. And I think that really this information that we're starting to find out about drugs and religion, psychoactive plants and religion, it's as much a threat to fundamentalist religion as Darwin's theory of evolution was to the myths of Genesis, because what it really shows is the plant-based shamanic origins of religion itself. And, you know, that's something that these types of religions have tried to squash every time they've come into contact with it, whether it being traveling into the New World and suppressing peyote and mushroom cults, or going into Africa and suppressing the indigenous use of plants there. It's always been some sort of like considered some sort of like devil's weed or devilish practice. But it's ironic that, you know, if you really look to the roots of religion itself, you start to find these plants all over the place.
Mm. I accidentally thought you had drawn that picture behind you, so now someone asked me if I could show a drawing that you did do, so I got this one.
Oh, great. I'm glad you still got that. That was a T-shirt I did back around 92 or 93.
Yeah.
You know, I'll grab this poster that I did in the 90s. I'll just a sec.
Yeah, check it out. That's pretty pimp right there.
Yeah,
Chris
that is really quite good.
He gave this to me probably, I don't know, like 15 or more.
Yeah, or something. This is this crazy religious poster I did in like 92 or 93. It's actually all on one white piece of paper. I did it all in black.
Wow.
It was before I wrote my books like Green Gold and stuff in 95, but basically covers a lot of the same sort of information. I must have smoked about 2 pounds of weed while I drew that over my desk, you know, just sitting over it, covering it and stuff like that. And it was like, you know, before I became a cannabis, I never had actually completed a drawing or written anything or anything like that. It's all just been inspired by my relationship with this wonderful plant that I can see inspires all of you as well.
So do you make that poster available? Can people like get a copy of that poster?
You know, it did go through a number of print runs. It's one of the few art and book projects that actually had a good paycheck to it for me, but it hasn't been printed for years. But I've always been planning on making another version of it with updated information and stuff like that. Perhaps after this next book, I'll get around to it.
I think the Hash Church congregation, I think the people would definitely be digging a poster like that. I know I would. Absolutely. That's cool, man. Very, very cool. Well, geez, we've been at it for almost 4 hours today.
Yeah. Well, there you go, man.
Today.
Sounds like you covered a lot of interesting ground, you know. I do want to say one thing political. I think that next spring when Canada legalizes cannabis, that's going to change the game. You know, whether they do it, it's going to be some sort of fucking crappy corporate bullshit. Like but it's still going to be a game changer internationally, and it's going to open it up to other nations to do it. And, you know, we're still dicking with our alcohol laws 90 years after ending alcohol prohibition in Canada, and I'm sure we'll be dicking with our marijuana regulations and stuff like that for decades after.
For sure. Yeah, that's true.
Probably damn accurate. Tony's been quiet. Just looking down. He's looking down at his bong.
Hey, Tony, I just wanted to say thanks for the Terps. I got them on my birthday.
Oh, really?
Oh. Boom! That's the way to do it, bro.
I figured you probably planned it that way.
So, Sam, did you ever have any more contact with the archaeologist that found those gold cups and bongs since the last time we communicated about it?
Yeah, he offered to sell them to me, but he wanted too much, so I didn't get them.
How much did gold cups and bowls go for?
No, I'm screwing with you. No, I haven't had any more contact. The guy was very, very nice. I think you were in contact with him also.
Well, I messaged him, but I didn't hear back. But I think that I said that I'd written this book about soma and cannabis and stuff, and I'm pretty sure that some of these guys are starting to come to the same conclusions, and they're not really interested in sharing their information until the papers come out and whatnot that discuss it, you know. They're probably drawing a lot of the same sort of ideas that I do, and they want to get published in some academic paper.
As you know, my main interest in the beginning was merely that I couldn't believe there was a gold bong. And
yeah.
I just refused to believe it. So I got in contact with the guy and found out what reality was, as I explained to you.
Yeah, I knew it was wrong right from the start, just because I'd already written about those guys, and there's other evidence of cannabis beverages with the Scythians. And you know, the general idea, the common view is that smoking of cannabis didn't take place until the New World discovery of tobacco smoking, and then it kind of built.
Doesn't seem to really be any serious large evidence contrary to what you just said. I agree with you.
Ben Dronker says that there's this one site where they found these little bronze pipes and things like that, and people sell them on eBay and date them way back, but I think that's just either a mistake in carbon dating or outright dishonesty.
Yeah,
and
I've seen one where they claimed one that was supposed to be 600 or 700 years old, but what they found was THC. They didn't find Delta-8. And all the old archaeological things found by Meshulam and these people, they're always Delta-8 because THC is gone. That
breaks down, yeah.
So
Yeah, it kind of broke
makes
down
you wonder, are the results believable?
Yeah, well, there's a big problem with that, you know. It definitely, there's confusion for sure.
One thing is for sure, it's been around forever, and everybody's been using it almost that long.
You know, I've tried to like come up with this idea of some sort of evidence of like some sort of cultural, biological relationship between us and cannabis, because you know it followed us around wherever we traveled. It grew in human waste. Night soil was the biggest fertilizer back in those days, and then we're ingesting this plant and then putting that back in the soil. And it's almost like there's some sort of like biofeedback loop or something like us between us and this plant. And now they're calling many diseases like endocannabinoid deficiencies, like we're lacking in cannabinoids, and that's the main way of getting it, you know. And particularly with cannabis cannabinoids and the human endocannabinoids, there's a particularly tight relationship there. Any thoughts on that, Sam?
I don't know what to say because, I've never suffered an endocannabinoid shortage. Because I've been artificially supplementing it rather extreme for quite a while. And I don't know what to say because it's not my real problem. But I know that both CBD, THC, and we're going to find out other compounds like THCV or CBG or who knows what the next big popular one will be, but this plant still has a lot of surprises up its sleeve.
I think there's more to come on the historical thing too. You know what I mean? It seems every few years we get some great new archaeological find indicating it, and I think that the implications of these recent articles about the Eurasian spread of cannabis is still going to be felt for some time. People are just kind of figuring out what these guys are talking about. But as that idea spreads into academia and stuff, this thing's really going to take root and then rise up from there.
Chris, my comment on that is that this again shows that there was a coevolution between humans and the plant, that they co-evolved.
Absolutely, I'd love to hear Rob Clark's comments on some of this stuff. It'd be great to have him around for this conversation because probably nobody's studied it as depth as himself.
Rob Clark is busy in Turkey reestablishing industrial land races of hemp to the Turkish continent, or to the Asian continent. He's on that side of it. But yeah, so Rob's a little bit busy right now, but he's doing a documentary about it, so it'll be quite interesting.
That's awesome.
Cool.
I found an incredible photo that Rob sent to me years ago. I was going through my photos yesterday looking for a photo, and it was, one of these photos of Rob under, I think it might have been in Vietnam for some reason, or maybe China, I don't know. It was some crazy, like 20-plus foot tall cannabis plant that he was standing underneath. It's quite a shot. Biggest plant I've ever seen in my life, for sure.
Incredible. Well, I gotta bounce. It's always a pleasure, brothers. And yeah, I love what you're all doing, and I love that this is happening. And all the best, man. I gotta go have breakfast and go for a skate. All the best. Cheers, brothers.
I'll see you tomorrow, Chris, for a skate in Vancouver on the boosted boards. Thanks for coming in and sharing your perspective. And I guess thanks everyone for coming in and sharing their perspective, from Chimera and Etienne to Skunkman Sam and Mark Scialdone, Todd Mccormick and Tony Verzura. We had Johnny B. We had D420K. And all the people that didn't make it today in the panel. We do appreciate when you do. And, of course, everyone watching. We had a solid 800-plus people watching live today. Good to see. Thanks, everybody. We'll see you next week for Hash Church 98. 2 more away after 98 from number 100, which do something, shouldn't we? Hey, nice. I like that. Is that like a Sitka tree inside the Steal Your Face?
Yeah, it's Steal Your Main Face.
Beautiful, man. I'll end it on that. Peace, everybody.